Hello and welcome to Fresh Faced Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me as always is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
You know, we are in the fourth year of doing this podcast, and I think finally we're getting more female writers.
We've had female artists as well, though, in the past.
That's true, but this is the first time we have had two female writers within the same year of episodes.
That is true. That is true. And why is that, Jacob? Because we're recording an episode on Batgirl by Gail Simone.
Oh God!
Yeah.
This is. I have been asking for this since the podcast began.
This is true. But here we are. This is Batgirl by Gail Simone. We're covering the first two volumes. This is The Darkest Reflection and Knightfall Descends, for those reading by other means. This is the first 13 issues as well as the 0 issue, so 14 issues altogether. I say also by other means because I'm doing the trays that we're covering, but Jacob is reading by a prematurely received omnibus.
It was a gift. It was a gift, and it's so pretty. It's so pretty.
I'm sure it is. I have the trades though, and they're also pretty. But yeah, 2 volumes from, I guess, I would not be doing this episode properly if I did not bring it up. 2 episodes by Fresh Face Comics fan Gail Simone. Okay, it's not fair to call her a fan. She watched one video by us.
She watched one video by us,
but
we can confirm. But still,
she follows me on Blue Sky as well. So I think that's progress. Gail, if you're listening to this for some reason, thank you. I'm trying my best not to be weird about it, but it's really cool that you know who we are. So, anyway. Let's do this. Jacob, Batgirl by Gail Simone. For non-spoiler section first, as always, what are these 2 volumes? Just first couple arcs that we're doing. What are they about?
Okay, so let's talk about the weird thing in the room. This is the first comic to be led by Barbara Gordon, as Batgirl.
That's true.
This is what, the 4th? I think it's the 4th volume of Batgirl. But before this, it was always Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown.
Yeah,
and I think that's really interesting because, let's be honest, this is the New 52, and editorial demanded some changes.
Yes,
let's get this out of the way.
Because what you're about to say is not a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler. Well, let's say a couple things. Dan DiDio demanded first Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown be wiped from history.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the reboot, and that Barbara Gordon would not only take up the mantle of Batgirl, but the Killing Joke would also have been canon. So, in essence, Dan DiDio demanded of whoever was going to write this book, that Barbara be the protagonist and she have her disability fixed.
Yes. Now, as far as I can tell, Dan DiDio, lovely man, has some weird fucking opinions on comics.
Dan DiDio seems to have a little weird fucking opinions on a lot of things.
Yes.
Now, that being said, because Gail Simone is Gail fucking Simone, she immediately is like, okay, well, I have to include these things. I am going to actually, outside of the fact that basically I have to have given Barbara Gordon a magic potion to regain the use of her legs, I'm going to actually do some interesting things by examining Barbara's psyche about having been disabled and now trying to navigate the identity of no longer being disabled and facing the world with this, both as Barbara and as Batgirl. I'm also going to try to set Barbara specifically on her own as her own character. And this is a Gail Simone who has already written Barbara Gordon as Oracle quite a bit in her Birds of Prey run, which I have not read, but hey, Joey, put that on the podcast somewhere, please, and thank you.
Jacob, it's happening. Jacob, so many things have to happen. There are so many things we have to do. This is, of course, one of them.
This is one of them.
I do also want to say on that point, having been in the online comic sphere for a long time, there's I think still a weird sect of online comic fans that think that Gail Simone herself is ableist for having been part of this run, which I think is very odd.
No, yeah, I mean, I would not be annoyed about any fans still being annoyed that Barbara is still completely recovered.
Mm-hmm. I mean, here's the problem. When you take her out of the chair in the way that this comic does, the way that Didio had the way the editorial had this happen to this character, and Gail Simone having taken Barbara on this fantastic arc that she does in this comic, and of course the rest of the run, the problem then is if you're putting her back in the chair, how do you handle that? Because you certainly don't go ahead and mortally wound her, not mortally wound her, but wound her to the point of disability once again, because surely you're just making the matter worse at that point. And you don't walk back this fantastic character that she goes on throughout this. So right now what we deal with in current comics is what is supposed to be a happy medium of her being Oracle in a chair as Barbara Gordon, not as really so much as Batgirl much anymore, though she still does both identities somehow. That seems to be what we've settled on. It's an interesting take, one that I kind of personally struggle with. But again, also it's hard to find a happy medium from what the New 52 ended up starting with Barbara Gordon as a character.
The New 52 opened a can of worms. A very messy can of worms, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also say I think that it's clear if you go into anything else behind the scenes of this run. Like, there was a period of time during this run where Simone was fired and then rehired in the course of like a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I don't know exactly when that happened. I'm not sure if it's in the first two volumes that we've read today, that we're reading for today. But I forget exactly when it was in the process of this run. I don't know. It's a weird thing that happened though.
Apparently it happened in okay, so it apparently happened in 2012. Or late 2012, possibly.
So probably like right at the start of where we would be picking up in the next volume, which is interesting because that's Death of the Family tie-in territory, which is a fascinating time to have taken this woman off this book. Odd choices all around. Anyway,
yeah,
let's get into some Blue Sky questions. Hopping over to Blue Sky. First off, of course, from our friend Kian at KianTheQuark.BlueSky.social says, Batgirl ? With a picture of Ace McShane from Doctor Who holding a bat. There's a picture then from our friend Andrew Doing Art at AndrewDoingArt.BlueSky.social says, Batgirl ? With a picture of the strange bat creature from Doctor Who's The Caves of Androzani. Andrew, I don't think you've ever participated in this joke before, and I'm a little disappointed in you for doing
the joke is spreading.
And it's spreading to others.
Stop it.
And there's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. Andrew did submit questions separately, though. First, Andrew says, after reading the first two volumes, how do you feel about the New 52's version of Barbara Gordon? Jacob?
Again, because it's Gail Simone, Simone's not going to totally ignore all of the characterization that's come before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's had to obviously take into account the fact of the compression of the timeline, because my God, the New 52's timeline is so weird.
Because, 3 years ago, she was shot by the Joker.
yeah, cool. That means in 3 years.
She was disabled, was Oracle, went through a process that made her not disabled, and became Batgirl again.
Yes.
Oh, New 52, never change.
Actually do change. But yes, I think Barbara as a character is great. She's a great perspective. Great to have this is going to sound kind of weird. Great to have a female writer writing a female character. And you get an inner life there, and it's interesting. And I don't know. I don't know if this sold to boys to the male demographic, but it easily could have.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that I knew people that picked this up when it was coming out. I was only just getting into the comic sphere when this was coming out. So I don't think I was like super aware of it when it was happening.
let's be
But it was
honest,
new.
Gail Simone as a writer has, like, as an official comics writer, at this point, would have already had a couple of runs under her belt that would have made
they
her
were
name
very
at least
popular.
known.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So yeah, Andrew also says, do you plan on covering the Cascade Batgirl stuff in the somewhat near future? The 2000s run is one of the better Bat Family books I've read, in my opinion. Interesting. I've never read it myself, though I certainly probably will soon, because we have that fantastic DC Finest collection of it.
I was going to say, with the DC Finest collection, there's a much better chance of it happening. Though.
I have so many DC Finest volumes. I love this line so much. If you're not picking up DC Finest collections, please do. They're so good.
I have 2 of them.
I have 7.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, then our friend Jamie at Jamie-season7.bluesky.social says, after this, you need to read Secret Six. I know I do. I've never read Secret Six in general. I should. I really, 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 really should. I haven't.
Surprise! Gail Simone writes a lot, and almost all of it is like, I think.
They're almost all long runs.
Say, has anything not like been received badly from Simone? Like,
nothing that I can immediately think of.
I think she's just a solid writer. Like, I have some criticisms of like the last arc in this book a little bit because it feels kind of compressed.
Which is funny because it's like tied with another arc for like the longest of the 2 volumes, which is interesting. But more on that later, of course, in spoilers. Yeah. Next from our friend Mason at the GD256.bluesky.social. 1, Batgirl is a good girl, and she is a good boy, and she is a great girl, and she is a very good girl, and I love her so much, and I love you so much, and I hope you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Smiley face. Mason then says, okay, I'll have real questions after this. I just spammed the auto text button on my phone. Mason, I love you very much. Mason's actual questions go: 1, who is Gail Simone, and why should I care? You should care because Gail Simone is just a great writer, a great, I would say, champion for certain voices within the comics community.
Accidental contributor to literary criticism at large from a blog in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
It's true, very true. Yeah,
because... like Mason, she is the reason fridging is called fridging.
It's true.
She's the one who named the trope. She didn't do the trope. That was Ron Mars, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ron Mars was on that book.
Thanks to a weird Green Lantern comic, which then spreads into a much larger conversation about famous books like The Killing Joke, which does feed into the stuff we're covering today. And we've also covered The Killing Joke on the podcast, which, despite a lot of the things we're going to say, The Killing Joke is a great book. It's obviously a great book. I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. Spoilers.
You can be great and problematic as fuck. Like, these are things that can happen.
Yeah, these things can be true. We just covered Preacher last episode. Mason's second question says, what differentiates this run from other Batgirl runs? Namely, those editorial things we talked about, I would say. This is the only time an arc like this has ever been done for the character. For obvious reasons, it is something that can only really be done once. It is truly one of a kind.
There's very well a reason when it comes to, like, the Barbara Gordon Batgirl runs, this is the definitive one. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Because Simone had things to say and said them, and then because I know then Barbara's Batgirl for all the New 52 and some of Rebirth, because Rebirth also does the thing with the Birds of Prey and her, and then you get and then they start like giving her more of a backseat because we're doing more Oracle things, and then you eventually get to Batgirls with Cass and Steph, which is great as well. And then currently there's a Batgirl.
Currently, I'm reading the current Cassandra came Batgirl stuff, which has been so good. But yeah, I would say to answer that question, it is a truly one of a kind run. I think everyone should read it. It's great.
Honestly, I recommend the Omni. It is a great way to get it all in one.
You can also just get the trades. The trades are still really cheap as well. So
this is true. Just go read. Basically, what we're saying is, if it says written by Gail Simone, buy it. Like,
read it.
Read it.
Mason's third question says, do all comic covers feature a superhero moving limbs in a way that shouldn't happen? I think Mason is specifically talking about the Volume 2 cover, and I think that's just what has to happen, Mason. Otherwise,
especially if they're female characters, because
yeah.
like
or for Spider-Man.
Yes. Well, I was gonna say some of the covers on this, while they're gorgeous art, they do get a little male gazy in places.
Yeah, I suppose so.
A little bit. Nowhere near as bad as they could get.
Oh yeah. Mason's fourth and final question says, if you could insert Batgirl into one historical event, which would it be and why? I always love the random Mason last question. Oh man, I don't know. I haven't really thought about this one. I should have. Jacob, thoughts?
You think I thought about this? Maybe like Edo period Japan, maybe?
Give me your reason why and make it detailed.
I don't know. It's because of a thing that happens in this book, actually. Like,
oh, yeah. Duh, you're right.
That might work.
I wasn't thinking about that when you said that. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
That might be why it's on my mind, because...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that about does it for questions, though. I guess we should get into spoilers now. This is consider this your official spoiler warning. We're going to go into each issue by issue, talk about the stories that we are covering today in Darkest Reflection and Knightfall Descends. If you're not sticking around for spoilers, and you want to find out what we're covering next time, we already announced it on the last episode, so I can just say it right now. We're covering Batman R.I.P. next time, the famous Batman story by Grant Morrison. Continue our Grant Morrison Batman readings. We've previously covered Batman and Son and the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. You can check all those episodes out previously.
And the Black Glove, even though that was part of
the Black Glove is included in our Batman and Son episode because there's a nice deluxe edition of Batman and Son, so it's a whole thing. Yeah, we're covering R.I.P. next time, and then we're getting into some Marvel after that, so we'll reveal all that in the next episode. I'm very excited about all that. But I'm also really excited about what we're about to cover. So consider this your official spoiler warning. Here we go. Jacob.
All right.
Batgirl number 1.
Batgirl number 1. Okay, yeah. Let's start about this.
You sound so jazzed getting into this.
I am.
So
here's the thing. I don't want to say I was worried going into this book. There was a little anxiety because I know the premise, and that's the premise of the run from editorial. And let's be honest, that's a little frightening. But also, Batgirl number 1, like Batman number 1 and Action Comics number 1, all of them are like among some of the New 52's best first issues. Like,
I would agree.
They really hit it out of the park. Because despite the fact that we have covered a lot of the New 52 and have often been very positive, the New 52 launched with 52 launch titles.
Oh yeah, I've had you read maybe about 10% of those titles.
Joey has intentionally been selective on.
I've chosen the good ones. I've chosen. Here's the okay. Because I feel like we do this list every now and then. Okay, we've done Batgirl, Action Comics, Batman, Justice League, Flash, Aquaman, and I feel like there's one more I'm missing. Or is that it? That might be it. Okay, so 6 of them.
I think those were all the ones, at least the ones that were available on launch. Because we also, you might be thinking Shazam.
Yeah, but that's part of Justice League.
But that's from the pages of.
I think I'm also right now lumping Green Lantern in with that because it's part of the Johns run, but we haven't gotten to the New 52.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet.
But those have all had great number 1s, and they've all launched those characters in great ways. And this is no exception. So. I guess let's get right into it. Okay, so let's talk about our first villain here. I guess we can we're in spoiler territory. This is Mirror, this character.
Yes, this is or the Mirror,
the Mirror, I suppose.
We open with a 2-page prologue of a man in black who opens his cape and just kills this rich guy with his own garden hose.
It's actually a pretty funny death.
It is funny, but it's also that is how you set the tone. That is how you set a tone.
Yeah.
With the big reveal that the next person on his list is Barbara Gordon.
Yes. As we meet Barbara herself in full Batgirl costume. I love this costume so much. Any strong opinions on this costume?
It's in term like it's a great costume. I love the use of purple on the cape. Like
So good. Yeah.
except the black.
Perfect. It perfectly accents the black and gold all throughout the rest of it. And this is also just my personal favorite Barbara Batgirl suit. I may also be saying that because I really, really don't like the one that follows it, the Burnside one.
I have seen the Burnside one.
I really hate the Burnside costume. I don't know. Anyway,
here's the thing. Now that I've read the first 2 volumes of this, I'm very curious to eventually do the rest of the New 52 post Simone.
Ooh, you would assume that I would want to cover that on the podcast.
I think we should.
I think there are about like 5 other Batgirl runs I would sooner have us do than Burnside.
That's interesting because I feel like here's the thing. I feel like the Burnside costume, just based on the cover of like the Burnside Omni.
Do they use the famous cell phone pose for the cover of that Omni?
Yeah. Okay. I hate to say it. It looks far more immature than what like Simone is setting up. Like,
yeah, for Barbara's character, like Barbara is a very mature character in this.
Barbara's an adult. Like,
yeah,
I think this actually might be a problem with certain female comics characters. Is that female comics characters are often thought of as younger than they are.
Mm-hmm. Often
when
it's childish.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like it's not that like Barbara in this book doesn't have her fair share of I would say I guess I would say like more like comedic moments or like I guess just funny moments. It's moments that I guess sort of speak to a more youthful reader. But I think that
there's a difference between youthful and childish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
like well, let's take both the internal monologue of which is how we're introduced to Barbara in the first couple panels of her introduction here. Mm-hmm. Of her very much calling into questions of like, okay, who is Barbara? Is she Barbara? Is she Batgirl? What for lack of a better term, what hat is she wearing? Before we then actually get her dialogue of Barbara being tough and then swinging in to potentially save the day. And that's where we get our actual, our big single page, gorgeous spread by Artie and Syaf? Syaf.
Yeah.
As Batgirl.
Her just swinging into the night. Like, yeah, she looks fantastic. I love this costume so much. And then
again, Gail Simone knows how to introduce a character.
So good. So good. But yeah, we get her taking on some crooks here early on that are attacking.
And to your point, these crooks are very funny. They are being called the Brisby Killers.
Because they killed their like one time, or they attacked their like one time. And it's like, no, it's just close. It's just close by. We did it once. We'll attack anywhere. Like
it's like we did it once. We did it once. We're not in Brisby now, even, and the press just ran with it.
Yeah. And again, I'm glad you brought up the narration when I brought up that sort of like that sort of like funny side of this book. I love her narration. I think that's where Barbara's the funny side of her character really comes in. I love when she's like fighting these crooks, and you get this this great bit where she's saying to herself like, I don't even know how much I missed it. Sure, momentum and good took that good luck first that took that first guy. I can't speak. Jesus. Fortunately, I've got the upper arm strength like a mother at this point. And then you get this guy like saying like, hey, you knocked Tanya out cold, and she's like, I did. And in her narration, I completely did. Like, there's just this side of Barbara that is just like genuinely excited, and you feel that in the way that someone writes her narration here. It works so well. I love
both excited and just that little bit unsure, because this is Barbara's back as Batgirl for the first time since recovering.
Yeah.
It's great. There's also this one gorgeous panel where Syaf draws Barbara's in shadow as if she's Bruce.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Love that one. And so we have Barbara finishing off these guys, nearly getting thrown out a window at this one moment, and like you see, it's that moment I love. I love seeing street level heroes sort of written this way, and that like she does like almost completely fail and fall at this point. Like it's Simone writes Barbara as a very vulnerable character, which is important to talk about now because of our next scene. Here we get the first of multiple times throughout this book and this run as a whole, where Gail Simone is going to evoke the Killing Joke, an ever so slightly altered version of the Killing Joke. In this version, Commissioner Gordon isn't there with her when it happens. And so she's left on her own. And also, most importantly, as we mentioned in our non-spoiler section, this is only 3 years ago.
This is only 3 years ago, and I don't know if any writer before this actually took the time to reflect on Barbara's mental state after Killing Joke.
Interesting.
I don't.
Also really interesting because not that long ago we were talking about Suicide Squad, and I can't wait to get to some of the Oracle stuff. Because again,
that's the thing. I don't know if they did.
I think in my opinion, although it is not quite as detailed as the Simone Batgirl run is, I might say Kim Yale walked so Gail Simone could run.
That does not surprise me. Would not surprise me because we haven't.
We haven't actually gotten there yet. We're about halfway through Ostrander's Suicide Squad, and Oracle is only just starting to become a part of that.
Yeah, so. we haven't revealed that Barbara is Oracle. We've just hinted at it.
Yeah,
really cleverly.
So good. It's so good.
A terrible thing of I feel like people who were reading this at the time may not have picked up on who Oracle was, but with hindsight, it's so obvious because
exactly. So here we see the Killing Joke, the big scene from the Killing Joke, where Joker shoots Barbara in her spine. We see it so specifically from Barbara's perspective here, to the point.
Something that let's be honest, something that was absent in the Killing Joke itself.
Yes. Yeah, and for the Killing Joke itself, Alan Moore writes that scene as a horrific moment for Jim Gordon and a triumphant villainous moment for the Joker. And Barbara is not so much a part of it.
Barbara in the Killing Joke gets almost no inner life.
Yeah,
her extent is basically I'm scared for my dad, which.
Hell, her best scene in the Killing Joke is probably the scene in the hospital after when she talks to Batman. Like
again, the one point where she gets a little bit of inner life that is, I am scared for my dad, which is fair. It's a fair enough characterization.
Yeah, totally.
It just is also lacking because you gave a female character a debilitating injury, all to advance every male character in the book.
Yeah, exactly. So we have this here as literally a source of Barbara's nightmares. She wakes up in a cold sweat remembering that.
Enhanced by the fact that Barbara Gordon has an eidetic memory.
Yeah.
And I love that Simone is yes, she's been brave, but it's I panicked every time I heard a doorbell for months after, but I survived.
Yeah. There's even a great little moment afterwards where Jim is waking her up in the morning, and it's just a small one of specifically calling out him knocking on her door, immediately waking up from a nightmare of remembering when she was shot. It's just something small to remind the reader of what she's going through. So we get Barbara talking to her dad, Jim Gordon, who, among the many things this book gets praised for, I feel like Jim Gordon doesn't get praised enough. I fucking love the way Gail Simone characterizes Jim Gordon. This first scene here between them is phenomenal. It is just Gordon trying to be there for her, because she's still learning how to try to live a normal life again. It is fascinating. I love this moment between them as Barbara is.
Barbara is moving out into her own apartment, which is... it's... Again, when we're talking about the compression of the 3 years since the accident, it makes sense.
Yeah. That's another great thing I think that Simone works with a lot here, is despite some of the weird continuity changes to DC as a whole, Simone finds a way not just to make them work, but to rationalize them, I would say.
And Simone, let's be honest, isn't afraid to necessarily alter them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Simone fully understands. God damn it, Siri. Simone fully gets that there is no way we can compress at this point a little over 23 years of comic history, I think.
Yeah.
Into 3 years.
And so changes have to be made. Specifically, this is Barbara actually moving out for the first time. And so this is her living on her own, not just post recovery, but just in general. And so she goes to meet her new roommate. This is Alicia,
Alicia Yao.
Jacob, so though it doesn't really get brought up in these first 2 volumes, I think you know something about Alicia going in.
Well, before that, I love the normalcy of Barbara, even in Gotham, found a roommate on Craigslist. Discount Craigslist because we can't say Craigslist.
I forget what they call it actually.
Greg S. List.
Greg S. List. Yeah, that's right. Very fun. I think you knew sort of, again, it doesn't get brought up in this, but you knew, I believe, that Alicia is a trans character going into this, right?
And this is 2011.
Yeah. In mainstream comics.
Is also not the first trans DC character, should we say. Like, shall we say. Like, that happened, I want to say in the 90s in Rachel Pollack's Doom Patrol, I think.
I believe. I can't be entirely sure about that.
At least the first explicit, and because...
But also, I mean, like, with Doom Patrol and like we talk about like important works like the Sandman and where trans characters featured prominently, it's like these were all things that were pushed to the side in other labels like Vertigo. This is a mainstream comic. Like
this is not only a mainstream. This is a flagship. DC just relaunched everything, and this is flagship books.
Yeah,
because it's a Batman related book.
And the first time Barbara Gordon has been Batgirl in decades. So to have this character here, and again, though it doesn't get brought up, it does get hinted at a little bit. I'm very curious to see exactly how Simone writes, for lack of a better term, the reveal, because that is very much a thing that writers like to do with queer characters, is they make their queerness a reveal and a twist. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I think Simone is very much going to keep that as normal based on developments within this book. There are other things going on that with Alicia specifically that get foreshadowed in her very second panel on screen.
Yes.
I tend bar at night and I paint during the day. I don't really have any rules except no creepy boyfriends, please. Do you have a creepy boyfriend, Gordon, Barbara Gordon? I also just fucking love this dynamic. Like, it's like, oh yeah, yes,
yeah. Because the idea at first is that these people are going to kind of stay out of each other's hair. Alicia has her life, Barbara has hers. Alicia is an activist, we learn. She's painting "Fight the Power" on her wall. It's a simple but effective way to introduce the character.
But also, like, they immediately, like, they're immediately hitting it off as friends. Like, it's right there.
We do cut away briefly to meet one Detective McKenna, but we sort of jump right back into this scene then as we get another important moment between Barbara and Alicia, where she sees the wheelchair ramp in Barbara's van, and Barbara kind of plays it off at first as, it's for family, it's just. I need it there, and they don't really.
And Alicia gets this very specific, like, that subtle ableism of, that's my biggest fear, being trapped in a chair like that. Can you imagine, like, prison?
Yeah,
and it's
and again, there's a great bit of narration here. Barbara says, like, she doesn't mean anything by it. I know she doesn't, but she doesn't know what it's like. What the chair helps you do. And I guess I feel like explaining it to her able-bodied but well-intentioned self right now.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I don't have I'm disabled, and, well, my disability is nowhere near like being a wheelchair user. Oh, that fills me with a lot of I feel seen. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it's like when you
Jacob, are you using your personal experiences to find enjoyment in a piece of media? Jacob, that makes you come into the comic so biased and unobjective. Jacob, what is wrong with you?
I was trying to think of a comeback, Joey, but I don't think I can. No, just yes.
Yes. I'm obviously joking. I'm
trying to figure out what you're quoting. Who exactly you're quoting?
I'm not quoting anyone in particular, but just making the general point that, obviously, our own personal experiences and our own things help inform our opinions on media, no matter how others might see it as biased or whatever. Of course, your own personal experiences and your thoughts and opinions on other things affect how you view any sort of piece of media, any art at all. Is
weird. Oddly enough, that's 2 episodes in a row where that's kind of come up.
Yeah, exactly. In very different ways.
In so different ways,
obviously.
But yeah.
Anyway, back to Mirror. Let's
back to Mirror because once again, actually, I was going to say I don't think I've said this in non-spoiler section. We've been reading for one shots Simone's Uncanny X-Men run, and Simone is masterful at working in the team dynamics as the supporting cast, and let's be honest, in her current X-Men run, a very large supporting cast of 9.
9 team members, in addition to multiple crossovers she's had to work on.
Some supporting minor characters who still I'd say at least currently 5 other supporting minor characters who aren't even superheroes. Simone is very good with supporting casts.
Jacob, are you trying to say Gail Simone is a good writer?
When have I not been trying to say that Gail Simone is a good writer? This is...
Anyway,
what I'm trying to say is Gail Simone understands that even that comics need to have that regular human element, and she's providing this.
Yeah. Mirror attacks a hospital.
Someone called Theodore Rankin. Specifically, the guy who's in recovery and being watched over by McKenna and McKenna's partner. And Barbara gets... Barbara, interestingly, because she's not Batman, and while Batman will call on the Bat family for certain things, including later in the episodes, in the issues we're covering today, she's routed her dad's work through her phone, which is she knows something's going up at the hospital, so she's gonna come in and save everything. So she's gonna face Mirror. Mirror is trying, we get her rushing to come in and face Mirror, including on her motorcycle.
Eventually finding Mirror and McKenna.
And we get some absolute chaos building up to this point, where, Barbara as Batgirl is right, assume the position, back off, this isn't going to work. And then Mirror points a gun at her, and she freezes.
Yes. The stress, the post-traumatic stress of having gone through.
She is. It's a triggering moment. That is the medical definition of being triggered, which I hate having to say because the internet has essentially ruined that phrase.
Jacob, are you telling me Barbara Gordon is triggered? Barbara. Yeah, of course. No, Barbara is legitimately triggered by this moment. It makes her freeze up. It gives Mirror the moment to toss this guy out a window, killing him.
You know what? I think Simone is also throughout this, in subtle and very fun ways, tributing the fact that Barbara Gordon, as a character, while technically she debuted in comics, was basically devised for the 60s Batman show. There's some fun over the top stuff here. That I would describe as Adam West played straight.
I don't know if this is the exact scene you want to bring up fun over the toppiness, but I mean, sure, whatever.
It's an okay. I don't know, the over the top death
I'm not sure.
of
I'm
being...
not sure if this. I'm not sure if this is the scene. This is a pretty dark scene, Jacob.
Yes, but it's still got that, like, it's also kind of dark, like, it's darkly ridiculous being thrown out the window of a hospital to your death. Okay, that is ridiculous.
Sure. Mirror once again pointing his gun at Barbara, and so is McKenna because she blames Barbara for letting this guy die and freezing up, bringing us wonderfully into issue number 2 of Batgirl. Picking up exactly where we left off. Mirror escaping the hospital and Batgirl running straight out after him. You get some great narration here, sort of reflecting on that moment. That moment where she froze up. Get a great chase scene between the two of them here.
We should also say this issue is called Cut Short, Cut Deep.
The trades do not have the titles of the stories.
Oh, so dude, you're missing. You are honestly missing out. Like a lot of the titling are very reflective of what Simone is doing.
I will never understand comic publishing's want to just randomly decide what trades and what collections of what stories get titles included and not. Like it's so fucking weird.
You know what it is? It's usually we want to try to sell it as a graphic novel.
And, that's true.
And
it doesn't make it any less fucking stupid.
It's incredibly dumb. I'm guessing it doesn't also have that it wouldn't have the individual issue credits.
It does not have the individual issue credits.
Yeah, no.
Now, here's the thing. Also, granted, it's a double-edged sword of it's annoying that the title pages aren't there, but also you look at the second and third pages of that issue, and God, that looks phenomenal. Just the art straight there of Batgirl jumping out the window. It looks amazing, like on its own. Phenomenal stuff.
I mean, they probably also say on the page after the cover that you might get the title, because I know.
No, they do not do that for Batgirl.
They don't do that for this. They do that for the Scott Snyder trade.
Again, it's another random thing. The New 52 would just randomly sometimes include the individual issue credits, and sometimes they don't, and it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all.
It's that really should be standardized. And they should all be included.
And it never will be.
Should be.
Anyway, we get another very human moment of Barbara kind of failing again as she goes after Mirror. Mirror is sort of dangling off this ledge of a building.
I mean, a lot of this early of this issue is just this chase in the rain, to a point of everything falling apart, because last issue Barbara froze and now she's trying to write but she can't. And
well, I mean, here we have Mirror literally using Barbara's goodness against her, because he's like dangling off this building. She goes to help him, and knowing that she's going to reach for him, he drags her off of the building, tosses her down. She catches herself with a wire, and Mirror gets away. It just kind of like the point of this whole first arc is just examining Batgirl and Barbara's personalities. It's really great. I love it. To also have a villain, not to spoil too much of this first arc here. It's Mirror being someone that is going specifically after both Batgirl and Barbara separately, and targeting them for specific reasons. So we'll get into that. But otherwise, we have our cops back at the hospital, sort of recovering from all that. Gordon coming in and talking to McKenna.
Okay, Jim Gordon being very much like, okay, your partner was just killed. You are going to take leave. You are going to take leave, and if you'd like to transfer out of the GCPD, you can. She won't, but she's going to take the leave. And she's also saying, we need a second warrant for Batgirl. She's back.
Yeah. So we catch up with Batgirl at a cemetery where she has sort of chased Mirror down to. We get a sort of standoff between the two of them, where we sort of get an idea of if Mirror has powers at all. It's he has a cool ass mirror cape, and it looks really cool.
I think he's just got a bunch of mirrors so he can see behind him, and
What a great idea for a character. But also, I love that panel where he opens up his cape Batman style and shows Barbara herself. It looks cool.
It's almost like Simone is trying to say something with the way the mirrors are drawn, and that it's almost there's something to do with shattered identity and becoming a monster. And
Jacob, that would imply that Gail Simone's a good writer, and we all know that's not true.
Okay, I don't think we can keep this bit up because there's a chance Simone is listening to this, and this is how you get a blood feud, Joey.
This is true, Jacob. Is it possible that I perhaps want a blood feud with Gail Simone?
If you have a blood feud with Simone, I can't protect you.
That's fine. It's not something you're supposed to win. It's anyway, Mira gets away once again. And we have
once again, Barbara's narration is all about how, she is just getting beaten, being broken down. And this final panel where she cannot move, where she's, yeah, that's right, run, you don't want none of this. Oh man. Ow.
Again, just that light edge of comedy that just makes Barbara as a character really, really work. And makes Barbara, dare I say it, even to non-disabled people, like, just extremely relatable. Just that very human side of her that just someone can easily connect with. And speaking of connections, let's talk about our next scene with Alicia.
And let's talk about secret identities, because I know a lot of like this, the drama around having a secret identity has largely been backseated at best in modern comics.
I mean, here's the thing. I understand it because I agree with it. Writing secret identity drama, it just gets fucking boring after a while.
But sometimes you get a writer like Gail Simone who creates this really interesting dynamic between Barbara and Alicia. Because Alicia is, one, already thinking, lives in Gotham, she's got a bat, it may not be someone regular at the doorbell, but oh no, it's my new roommate. Ooh. She immediately jumps to, let's be honest, the obvious conclusion. Oh god, she has a creepy boyfriend who's abusing her. Yeah. Like, it is this very real portrayal of female friendships and the female experience, and potentially the trans experience as well. I'm not entirely sure about that. Just based on, let's just say, based on some pretty hard, real statistics. But yeah,
Barbara tries to assure Alicia that she is not in an abusive relationship and that she's fine, but she still will not open up to her.
Importantly, I'm not a criminal and I'm not a victim.
Yeah. Which is something you get the sense also that Barbara doesn't entirely believe herself because she's still finding that out for herself. But
it's definitely something that Simone is exploring, that Barbara's not a victim.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alicia's going to make Barbara some laksa, which is a Vietnamese soup.
And Barbara asks Alicia then if she has something maybe she could borrow, something cute to wear, because Barbara the next day is on a date with her physical
therapist.
Yeah. So again, just Simone adding some extra layers to Barbara's time of recovering.
I'll say this. Simone knows that this is weird. Like,
oh yeah, it's written like a weird relationship.
There's a reason it's a weird relationship, and Barbara's able to recognize how weird it is and almost cuts it off fairly quickly. Like,
yeah,
like it happens. Like it's very weird, and Barbara's
and even her physical therapist points out to her. She's like, I'm not sure if I can even still like legally do this because still doctor, like past relationship with you, like it's a thing. And so we get this like this section of them sort of like separating. I'm trying to remember. I don't think we see him again for the rest of this, do we?
No, we don't, because they essentially break up.
He gets brought up again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of it comes down to the art saying one thing while the words are saying another thing. It's very much like, it's a brilliant piece of like 2 pages of storytelling of saying, here's why this doesn't work, like as a relationship, and here's why it's Barbara trying to find some sort of normalcy. And part of this is, in a way, very much trying to say that Barbara doesn't need a boyfriend to be whole again.
Yeah.
Like that's.
But also, there's the side of the character that, like, that Simone is trying to write Barbara, trying to find some normalcy in her life by just going on a date and trying to just be normal and be like a regular person. So you get that moment of it as well, which is just nice. It's nice to see. But on the flip side of things, we then get to see Barbara doing some detective work, trying to look into Mirror and find out who he was. Interestingly, we find out the mystery of who he was pretty easily. We're able to
that
figure out
he was a Fed and a war hero who survived a train crash that his entire family died on. Yeah. And he's basically going after the people the people not so much responsible, but those who tried to help in this warped sense of, why is anyone trying to actually help?
Simply the idea that for him, he experienced, though he lived, he still has experienced a great trauma, and he's sort of being forced to continue to live through it. For him, he has seen the worst of the world, and he doesn't understand the goodness of people in this horrible world. They're saying that out loud. Yes, there's a very obvious connection that Simone is drawing between this character and Barbara.
Simone isn't subtle about her theming.
No, of course. It doesn't make it.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards, and that's an okay thing.
It doesn't make it any less great. It's obviously amazing. But Barbara's then able to find Mira's sort of hideout, and she gets a message then from him that's he sort of like lays out backstory of his own, and he then says that he has rigged a bomb on this train going after this guy that helped him, Barbara has however long to go out and stop it. That's our sort of big issue 2 cliffhanger, taking us into Batgirl number 3, which, hey, that's an interesting cover.
Yeah. You know what?
Speaking of Dan DiDio decisions,
Dan DiDio decisions, but also, I think it's telling that Simone doesn't use so much of the Bat family at large. Like, when she uses them sparingly, and it works. Because
totally.
This is Barbara's book. I mean, there's a reason the first person to show up is from the family is Dick.
We should also say, for the people listening, the cover is Batgirl alongside Nightwing as well, so who's on this cover. And I also mentioned Dan DiDio because he's in a weird red suit that nobody liked. So
that nobody liked.
Yeah. Anyway, picking up where we left off, Babs is off to stop this train from or find this bomb on this train. Finding herself amongst all these civilians here. She finds the guy that Mirror is after.
I will say the title of this issue is A Breath of Broken Glass.
That's nice. That's
again, it's such a shame you're missing genuinely great titles. Like Simone knows how to title things. It's very much like, God damn it, I'm going to make a miracle happen and I'm going to save these people. All while the Mirror is taunting her that you're not going to find it, and you will never find the bomb in time. It is an insult to the dead to try.
Yeah, because our big twist here is essentially that she does find the train. She does save these people, but
she finds Rupert Ansell.
The bomb is not on this train. It is on the one that is passing the train that is passing by, and it still blows up. It still kills all these people. And once again, Barbara fails. So, 2 hours later, we have Barbara with her dad.
We first have McKenna's obsession with Batgirl of trying to get down to it, and it's another little subtle arc that's going to be going as an undercurrent through these 2 volumes until it gets resolved right near the end.
Yeah. And then we get this great scene between Barbara and Jim. She asks him to go out to lunch with her. And Jim is like, "Are you okay? Something's wrong." And then we get this amazing panel, which is just repeated twice. And Barbara's inner monologue says, "What I'd like to say is, well, my handsome therapist says we can't date anymore. He says it's inappropriate. I worked my tail off for my forensic psychology degree, and guess what? It turns out I have no experience for the job I want, and I'm overqualified for everything else. Oh, and I think my artist roommate might be an anarchist. My rooms feel like they're in a vice. And oh, by the way, I was there when the bomb hit the train this morning. What I actually say is, I guess I just missed you, Dad.
Missed you, Dad."
Oh, my heart breaks. It's so good.
I mean, that is the perfect parental relationship. It's like, yeah, I'd love to be able to just spill my guts, but I can't. And it's Jim tries to comfort her. And Simone basically is like, there's a chance Barbara's condition could deteriorate.
Yeah.
Which
obviously doesn't happen. It's but it is just this idea of Barbara's own mortality at the back of her mind that I think is just it's a nice reminder to keep there. It works is all I'm trying to say. We have then Barbara as Batgirl still looking at a mirror, and as she is out investigating,
she's getting her motorcycle back from the police. And who should be following her but
Dick Grayson, the man, the myth, the legend, the ass. Nightwing is here. First off, have we ever done a proper red suit rant on this podcast? It's been a while since we've even had it in a comic we covered.
It's been the last time we had it in a comic was Snyder's Batman.
But not since like Death of the Family, I think.
Yeah, because he's not been around. It's been a while.
Time. He was a secret agent man. Thoughts on the red suit?
Here's the thing. I don't hate it, but it looks really out of place when you look at literally every other costume Dick has worn as Nightwing.
Yeah, my take on it was part of the want to make the Bat family look kind of uniform, so the aesthetic was always black, yellow, and red was what everyone should look like. So they included any other color, including purple, which is why it surprises me that the Batgirl costume got past the editorial radar. Any other color, including like any potential green on any Robin costume, was just forbidden. It was very weird.
Yeah, because Damian's Robin costume has no green in it.
But maybe the mask. Actually, maybe the New 52 mask is. But even then, it's just the little domino mask. But Tim's costume in Teen Titans has no green on it.
Because he's Red Robin.
Yeah. So it was the want to make the Bat family look kind of uniform and color scheme.
Gonna be honest, I don't love the we need our family to look uniform, like.
Yeah, because again, and literally everyone will agree on this, Nightwing just looks better in blue. And
it's almost like Dick Grayson as a character is supposed to be different from Bruce Wayne. Like, yes, that is, it's almost like Jacob, that's a thread.
Jacob, that would imply that is the point of the character. And we all know that's not true. Anyway,
we all know what we. Oh God, I can't quote Holy Musical Batman off the top of my head.
Good. Oh, Batman is a solitary figure. Is that it?
Yeah, Batman is a solitary figure.
Batman is a solitary figure. Anyway, so Dick is worried about Barbara. Rightfully so, I think. But also, this is Barbara Gordon trying to prove herself. So there is this
and once again, there's this. Simone is very much like, hey, all these well-meaning people are subtly ableist and are like, yeah, do you want to be back in the chair? And it's like, stop treating Barbara differently.
Yeah.
Now, luckily,
they're not trying to do this. They're not meaning to offend her on such a personal level, but it's accidentally, and again, it's the way it's always written. They're accidentally doing that.
Yeah. Now, Barbara can at least knock Nightwing on his ass and say tag, and they have a game of tag across the city, and it's great and adorable, and we get a flashback.
And I love these flashbacks so much. So good. Amazing scene. Just of a young Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon at some shitty police Wayne Foundation charity event, and it's just them being adorable together.
The downside is that this is maybe only 4 years ago, quote unquote.
Yeah. Oh, New 52, never change. So
there's this idea throughout the issue of the dancer and the acrobat, which is one. It's a great way to distinguish who Barbara is as Batgirl. I'd argue from Cass and Steph as like a dancer. From the little bit that I know about Cass and Steph, because we've only really done one thing with Cass and Steph, and that was Night of the Monster Men, which was good.
That's good. They get some great character moments in that.
Yeah, it was just a bigger. It wasn't like it was. They were also sharing the screen with everybody else.
But I love where the last scene of this issue, then, where Dick and Barbara sort of part ways, and it is Dick finally getting the message of Barbara wanting to do this on her own. And I love that last panel where Barbara's just sort of left alone on the rooftop. It really hammers home.
I think this was also like part one of a 2-part crossover, technically.
Yes. She did also appear in the actual in Nightwing at the time as well, which is also a great issue, but obviously also not written by Gail Simone. So there's that.
It also just it's the sort of just obvious character crossover that
I would also say, having read both issues, they both work very well on their own as well.
They're
great individual stories.
There isn't like an overarching plot. It's more of we're trying to cross promote these books and get people reading more comics, obviously, and doing it in a very good way, mainly because it's how these characters interact. But Batgirl number 4.
Love that cover. Oh my god.
This is an end to dreams.
Thank you for that.
Because, of course, Barbara is dreaming about herself as Batgirl in the chair while Barbara Gordon can walk.
Gail Simone is just predicting current DC. Anyway, I love this opening dream sequence where it is literally Barbara yelling at herself. It's yelling at Batgirl in a wheelchair. It's great. It's great stuff. Barbara wakes up once again in a cold sweat, and it's Christmas. Alicia is sitting in front of a Christmas tree. They have this really great little heart-to-heart. Barbara, for the first time, opens up to Alicia about her
mom walking out. Yeah,
the wheelchair ramp is in this. Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, no, it's first about her mom walking out. Yeah. So Christmas is kind of a hard time. And
we actually, I just want to if I can break continuity here for a second. We're recording this on the same night that we recorded our most recent one-shots. They're probably not our most recent one-shots at the time of this coming out. So
they are definitely not, because
last week's one-shots for last Halloween, which literally has a portrayal of her mom walking out on the Gordon family, albeit under very different circumstances, in a very different context. But I just read these two things sort of side by side is just really interesting for me. As someone that does these videos and podcasts, it's just it's really interesting, is all. But yeah, in opening up, Alicia also says that she has something that she would like to tell Barbara, and Barbara then runs out of the apartment. Yeah,
and it's not like she has to go, but it's something clicks.
Yeah.
So she runs out of the apartment, becomes Batgirl,
takes on
finds
some muggers.
yeah, it turns out someone called Hugo
I love these guys. I love these guys so much.
made an app for criminals to report Batman sightings.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, this is Gotham. You would think Gotham's criminals would at least be aware that in Gotham itself, at this point, there is also Robin and.
But we're just worried about Batman. Realistically, I suppose they're right to just be worried about Batman. But also, yeah, Batgirl here.
And you also later, as revealed, you have Kate Kane, you have Batwoman.
Yeah. Like, but God, I love these muggers so much. There's this guy that's like mugging this woman, and she's wearing like a fur coat. And this guy's big threat to her is, "Don't you people know fur is murder?" So Barbara beats these guys up, and then afterwards the woman with the coat says to Barbara that the fur is fake. It's so great. I love it. It's just
I also love this idea that Barbara stays with them until the cops get here, and
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah,
is nothing but kind, and ends up spending the entire Christmas Eve out until she comes to the cemetery where Mirror is laying flowers on his family's graves, and Barbara has left a note.
Yes. Sort of just challenging Mirror, goading him to this carnival, essentially. We have this Hall of Mirrors here, where we got a sort of final confrontation between them. It is this amazingly cathartic moment for Barbara as a character, being directly faced with this guy that obviously Simone is drawing some direct parallels between Barbara and Mirror that just really culminate in the end of this fantastic first arc in this volume, defeating Mirror here, and her saying to him, I really love this last line. Mirror, you wanted to impose your beliefs on the universe, Agent Mills. You hated surviving. Your miracle seemed like being mocked by God. We live in Gotham City, Mirror. Sometimes extraordinary things happen to the very worst people, and the best people suffer. And sometimes people get their miracles, whether they deserve them or not. Believe me, I know. Oh, God, it just... Good shit. Hot take. Great comic.
Yeah, and we are only 4 issues in.
God, we're over an hour into the episode already. You know that, right?
Look, you should have known based on our one shots of Uncanny. Simone always brings a lot to talk about.
And we're not even done yet. We still have one last page in this issue. Because
Barbara and Alicia are opening presents. Mm-hmm. Alicia's gotten Barbara some art, and Barbara has gotten Alicia some cooking knives because one of Alicia's passions is cooking. Mm-hmm. I don't know, just giving this woman a knife seems like the right call. It fits.
There's a doorbell, which once again just bringing back that little hint of just Barbara finally beginning to get over her trauma, where she immediately says I'll get it. She opens the door.
Is shocked to find her mother.
Yes. That is where we end the issue, taking us into Batgirl number 5. Not quite picking up where we left off, because we're gonna do some reflection on that later.
I'll also say I love this title. It's A Candy Full of Spiders.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. Here though, sort of getting into the last 2 issues of this first volume, we have a sort of smaller arc here, to sort of fill the gap here between this and Simone's next big push.
That Batgirl is going after the Whitaker mob.
Yes.
And, who are risking something for something. Something is very weird. The mob's acting weird. And again, what's nice is that Barbara seems to just be street level.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have many supervillainy type supervillains. Like,
Well, it's also interesting because I would say at this point in the New 52, like Barbara's still kind of operating on a level that like is kind of separated from the larger Bat family. She started going out and being Batgirl on her own. Like this isn't something like Dick Grayson being with her there in the last issue or 2 issues ago. Was kind of like on his own, and spoilers, we're gonna have a Batman appearance in this arc, and like it's the first time that he's really seen her as Batgirl, and we haven't done any of the larger crossovers with like the Court of Owls stuff or Death of the Family, where we've seen Batgirl in the main Batman title. So like we're really just starting to get her interacting with the larger Bat family in the New 52. So her stuff is still very street level and still very personal for her. So it's cool. I like the way that it's an understated part of the run, but I like the way that Simone sort of builds up Barbara sort of continuing to challenge herself in further significant ways as she becomes more comfortable back in the costume. So it's cool. I like it. But yeah, she
and there's this weird thing of these mobsters specifically want $3.38 just for some reason. Like it's again, it's very weird. They're mugging a random family for $3.38.
On then saying 3:38, so one guy in the mob begins shooting his own guys, and then throws himself off a bridge. Batgirl tries to save him, and we have the arrival of a new villain for Barbara here. Did she say her name yet? She doesn't say her name yet.
Yeah, this is Gretel.
Yeah. Oh, did you say Gretel? Oh yeah, sorry, missed that. Yeah, she's a secret agent looking character in a white jumpsuit sort of thing, with green hair and a sword. And so she punches Barbara in the face. We have this great little fight scene between them as these other guys are like trying to save the guy falling off the bridge. Gretel just kind of leaves. She says rain check to Batgirl as she just kind of walks away. Says she doesn't have much time. So we pull the guy up off the bridge.
All he can be saying is 3:38 just over and over.
And then we flash back to 4 hours ago. Because Barbara has a lot on her mind, namely the arrival of her mother on her doorstep on Christmas, and Barbara doesn't quite know how to feel about this.
And Simone is great at it's like so they go out and walk around and go for muffins, and it's just encapsulates this uncertainty of what are you doing here? I haven't seen you in over 12 years, and you walked out on us without actually But it takes a while to actually say that.
Yeah.
And Barbara tries tries to be understanding.
We also specifically call out that Jim still doesn't know that she's back in the city. She hasn't decided to tell him yet. And she's also still unwilling to tell Barbara or anyone why she walked out on them, which we will get the answer to. And it's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And Barbara's rightfully mad that she just drops back into her life with no warning and no explanation. Meanwhile,
McKenna
has been working out and becoming more obsessed with Batgirl, and Gordon wants Batgirl found because of the 3 dead members of the Whitaker mob.
I just realized I've been calling Gordon Jim a lot, and I don't usually do that, but I think I'm doing it specifically because we have multiple Gordons in this book. And I feel like I specifically have to say Jim, but even though I feel like if I just said Gordon, everyone would know I was saying Jim Gordon. I just feel like I have to do it for some reason.
You have to do it. It's also the funny thing of we then later we end up having 4 Gordons in this.
Yeah,
and they have this. They all have the same name.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone has the same name. Everyone is named after their parents somehow. All I'm sure Jim's father was named Jim as well. I'm sure Barbara's mother was named Barbara again. But Barbara's watching a news broadcast because also what we're focusing on here is another thing that we read and talked about way back in Court of Owls. Bruce's plan to sort of reform Gotham.
And in the background, Simone has very much been showing like graffiti of "Don't gentrify Gotham." Because let's be honest, while Snyder in the Batman main Batman title is very much like pro this happening.
Mm-hmm. Because it is a book entirely from Bruce's perspective,
and Gail Simone understands billionaires not good people. Part of the fantasy is that Bruce Wayne is a good billionaire. That is part of the fantasy of Batman. And it's very much playing with like the people who are actually living in these places, which includes Barbara and Alicia, and especially Alicia.
Yeah, Alicia, who is specifically against people like Bruce Wayne and his plan for Gotham.
Because they think it's going to be gentrification. It's going to be pushing out the poor, and usually the poor is usually made up of largely minorities. So
I gotta say, I always had this perfect fantasy of like reading all of Batman and like all of the Bat Family books that would tie into it at the time, like like with each other, like all as they came out. And it's just like I've never gotten around to actually doing it, but it does make for like a fascinating, larger sort of world building thing. Like as you're reading them side by side.
I imagine with how they would end up talking, because I feel like Simone and Snyder talk to each other really well. Like their books.
I'll say also the early Nightwing stuff so perfectly ties into Court of Owls. It's insane. I love that's what I have done is I have read Nightwing and Batman side by side.
I'd be curious to see how then Batman and Robin ties in, especially because that's,
Batman and Robin and Detective are very much doing their own arcs up until Night of the Owls, so you kind of have to read this as a separate thing and then do the Night of the Owls tie-ins. Anyway, Barbara watching this news broadcast sees a sign in the back with 338 Green Lake Drive written on it. And so Barbara kind of puts that together. She's going to go down there.
Puts together that it's something, that it's...
It's at least a clue. It's something.
And it's probably a trigger phrase of something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
We see Bruce Wayne then for the first time in this book, who is being driven to this event. He has two sort of assistants here, one of which seems devious, let's say.
Says 338, and then was like, "Excuse me, Tommy, did you say something?" "I did, Mr. Wayne. I said 338, Mr. Wayne."
Mm-hmm. Smashing the car into a fence on this construction site that Wayne is working on. Gretel is here wearing a different color hair this time. This time it's pink. Watching over this limo that crashes into this fence. Tommy begins attacking Bruce. Barbara jumps in as Batgirl and fights him.
And then, of course,
I love the twist. I love the twist so much. It's so good. Turns out, in our sleeper agents activated by the phrase 338, one of them is Bruce Wayne, who begins attacking Batgirl, and that is the end of issue 5. It's such a great cliffhanger. I love it. Bringing us into Batgirl number 6, which probably my favorite cover of both collections that we're doing today. I really, really love this one. It's so good. Gorgeous piece.
This is a house made of spun glass.
I really love these titles. I've never heard these before.
I know. The titles are great. Simone knows how to title things. Yeah, so we have Batgirl versus Batman.
Batgirl versus Bruce Wayne, Jacob. You're trying to imply right now that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person, and I think we all know that that's not true.
Oh yeah, we know that's impossible. Batman's obviously Clark Kent.
Yes. No, Jacob. Clark Kent is Batman. Have you not seen Superman the Animated Series?
Yes.
Anyway, so we have Bruce fighting Batgirl here, being a sort of sleeper agent. Great fight scene here. A lot of great narration. A sort of reflection then. Once again, reframing Killing Joke. sort of doing our post-Killing Joke hospital scene between Batman and Barbara that I really, really
and okay, yeah, can we take a minute here? Because once again, one of the problems with the Killing Joke,
it's not about Barbara.
It's not about Barbara, whereas Gail Simone is very much phrasing this as it is about Barbara. And I love Barbara's like mental state of, he came to my hospital room. I know he didn't think the way the rest of us do. I'd been dreading his visit. God only knows what horrible things he might say. How did you let this happen, Barbara? Didn't I train you better than this? You should never have been Batgirl. I actually thought he would say those things to me. But he didn't say any of that. He didn't say anything. He just stood there holding my hand.
Oh my god, it's so good.
It makes me want Gail Simone on an actual Batman run.
That I would love. Oh my god, could you imagine?
I like, hey, give it like a couple more. Let's give it like however many more years it takes for her on X-Men, because I want that run to be super long, and then maybe when Fraction's done with his current Batman run, we can get Simone Batman.
I would take it. I'll say also, we did have a really great Superman story in Action Comics from Gail Simone not that long ago that I really, really loved. So I wish that was a full run, but it was a great little, I think it was three part story that I really
because they were doing like 3-part
the Superstars run. Yeah, which I really like that Superstars initiative. I kind of hope they were still doing it because it was really nice. But anyway, so we have getting back into this. We sort of
Barbara's able to snap Bruce out of it by, of course, invoking his parents, and the fact that they're in Crime Alley.
Mm-hmm. I need to know, Jacob, were you how much small scale New 52 discourse are you aware of?
I am not that much.
Did you know that the scene that we're about to talk about was actually really controversial at a time?
Why was it controversial? Is it?
If you were to guess a specific line that got very
is it that you were always meant to be Batgirl? Yes! Barbara line?
That's our Twitter moment. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. I get it. Like I especially get it because, once again, my ire is not at Gail Simone. The line is there for a clear reason in Barbara's character arc, and also a clear piece of characterization of who Bruce Wayne is, and that Bruce Wayne actually cares. But when you are 6 months into your reboot that essentially made two incredibly popular characters who were both Batgirl no longer exist, now, I can understand the anger.
Yeah, this line is also being written in the context of a universe that, as far as Bruce is aware, does not know that Cassandra Cain or Stephanie Brown even exist.
And Gail Simone is not metatextually saying Barbara is the only,
which is certainly the way that a lot of people read it at the time, and also many years after the time.
Here's the thing: in context, you clearly understand that that's not even the metatext. Mm-hmm. If you're just presented with that panel,
perhaps
the metatext is there.
Well, perhaps also, especially in a world where today also we're aware that we didn't actually wipe Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown off the face of the earth.
They eventually brought them back because
hot take, great characters. Great characters.
Hot take. I don't think Dan DiDio liked those characters.
He didn't, and he was wrong to get rid of them. But also, I gotta say, I really love their reintroductions into current continuity. We will totally read Batman and Robin Eternal someday.
Probably after Batman Eternal, because
well, here's the thing: Batman Eternal introduced Steph, and Batman and Robin Eternal introduced Cass into the new continuity. So we kind of
they didn't just do. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, we kind of have to do them in tandem. So. They're both great. They really are. And then we should just do James Tynion's Detective, and we should read everything, Jacob, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, controversial scene aside, it is a great moment, because it is just, affirming for Batgirl that she has every right to be in this costume right now, which is really where Barbara's fears right now are.
And it's also aligned very much focusing on the idea of identity and navigating the identity when your life has changed so much from being a superhero to being disabled to no longer being disabled and becoming a superhero again. It's a whole thing. It's very well done.
Yeah. let's get some Gretel backstory then, though. We get a sort of Gretel flashback to where she came from, how she's involved with all the people that she's been going
She
after.
desperately wants to be Lois Lane, but
Yes, which I mean, and don't we all really? I mean,
except she has no journalistic integrity. Like so much so like she was chasing the story in the worst way possible, so much so that she gets shot. And instead of being punished by the narrative, she gets psychic powers because of this.
comics, gotta love it.
Well, I mean, in a way, it's Gail Simone once again playing around with women being fridged instead of an often sexist narrative is to try to punish a woman who steps out of line. It's like, no, she gets superpowers. And part of the thing is she's set up to be evil anyway, so the superpowers don't make her evil. But
she just wasn't a good person in the first place. So we didn't get to see. Oh god, I love this bit. Barbara goes back home, and Alicia is very concerned because Barbara's mom.
I love it when Harley's like, Gordon, you got to get in here. You've got to stop her. She won't stop baking.
And so Barbara's mom has been there baking the entire day, and she made Barbara's favorite muffins for her, which are cranberry banana muffins, which sound very good, and I've never had before, and now I want them. And God, also again, they're laced with this slight lining of humor that really works. I love the narration here when Barbara walks away because she sort of like shuns her mom, and she goes, "Sure, you will, Mom. Sure. I snuck 2 muffins. I'm not made of stone." Gretel said she just reloaded. She keeps going. Where's the bit that I really, really love? Doesn't she say something about the muffins later on? Or am I misremembering? I think I am. I think I'm more thinking of the made of stone line, which is great. Again,
it's the humor, but it's also that just great. She's trying to interface, like that humor to interface with the fact that like her mom's trying, but is not connecting at all. But also, who's going to turn down free food? Who's going to turn down free food?
Exactly. I love the little, pouty face that Barbara is drawn with in that third panel, or that fourth panel on that page, as she angrily eats the muffin.
It is clearly delicious. Like,
yes, obviously, and even in her own room, she's not willing to admit that it's delicious. Amazing. Barbara.
We find out that Bruce initially paid for the medical treatments of Liz Isley Bonner, of Barbara's medical treatments that he never had to do, and he never let Jim know, which is again fascinating. So the rest of this issue is working together, like it's a classic detective, like 60s detective comic style Batman Batgirl team up. Like again, this is very much a serious book, but it goes to the fun. It goes to the fun places in the way it uses these characters, and I love it.
Totally. So we have like Bruce kind of like trying to like bait out this attack from Gretel publicly, and Batgirl being there to stand in the way of Gretel. Now with blue hair, I'm not sure I ever quite got the changes in hair color. Is it literally just because they're obviously they're wigs, but I didn't know if I can never quite figure out if the change in hair color was meant to signify something for the character.
Lack of solid identity, lack of solid wants. Like that's what I took it to mean.
That makes sense.
Like I think it's also supposed to be a Hansel and Gretel reference because of like the housemaid of gingerbread. Like that's sort of colors. Like it's weird. Gail Simone's a writer who thinks about what themes she's putting into her books.
Jacob. That would imply that Gail Simone's a good writer and that comic books have themes and that stories mean something. And I think you're wrong about all of that.
I love how this bit has evolved over these past few episodes.
This bit is going to escalate beyond my own comprehension, and I really love that.
It is.
McKenna is there to try to stop Batgirl from going after Gretel, and Batman is there to sort of back her up. Love this team up here. It's really great. We get a great standoff between them. eventually defeating Gretel.
I love this moment where Gretel is clearly defeated. It's like, please, I'm so tired, just let me fall. And of course they're not going to, because it's Batgirl.
Yeah.
And Batman's there, and
yeah.
she's eventually turned over to McKenna. And Barbara doesn't get arrested because Batman's also there.
Gretel gets taken in as well, which is, what a great ending for that character that we're definitely never going to see again, right?
Right.
Yeah. What I do lament of you not reading the trades of these is you don't get these wonderful sketches that are included at the end of this trade, including an initial New 52 Batgirl design by Jim Lee that I really love.
Well, actually...
Oh, are they included still?
They are included at the end of the Omni.
Oh, God, aren't they nice?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Do you get the early cover designs by Artie and Saif?
You might. I haven't flipped through them all because there's a good 30. It's like I think basically all the trade extras are combined into one and put right at the end of the Omni.
That's fair. Does the Omni include the big controversial Joker cover though?
I'm not sure.
You know that cover though, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. They probably, here's the thing. If I were to guess, they probably don't because it was officially pulled from shelves. We'll talk about it.
Was it like
there is an altered version of the cover that might be in there. That's less violence against women-y.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's a concerning cover. We'll talk about it. Anyway, that finishes volume 1. That finishes The Darkest Reflection. We still have a whole other 8 issues to get through, and this episode is so long already. So let's get into volume 2, Knightfall Descends, not to be confused at all with Knightfall the event, which is really confusing.
In my expectations, I was like, does this have something to do with the event Knightfall?
Not in the slightest.
which good, because that would be...
Jacob, are you implying that Knightfall is a bad event?
No, I'm not. Knightfall's a great event. Knightquest, on the other hand...
Knightquest, on the other hand, yeah, that's fair.
Is a not good event. And Knight's End is actually pretty decent.
Yeah. Now I know the Omni orders these differently, but for the sake of us covering for the sake of labeling the episode in the way that I'm personally reading them, we're going to do them in the order that the issues are collected in the trades. So we're going to do Batgirl number 0 next. So let's go to that.
Honestly, Batgirl number 0 is a great little standalone issue.
I'll say also in the second trade, the titles are included, but not on the actual title pages. More in that they have the black and white sketch cover with the title above that, which is nice at least. So this is a fire in the head.
Hang on. How does that?
They didn't do it in volume 1. They did it in volume 2. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
No, but even weirder. If they remove the last panel of the issue is the title. That's. And it's stylized. Yeah,
let me just look at that for a second. Hang on, let me look at the final page.
Do they just cut it and re?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So the final, it's just. Hang on, what does the actual thing look like? Because it's all the space is used, but there are big white bars between each panel.
How big are the white bars?
Large enough that you could definitely fit a title in there. Let me take a picture of it.
No. So what they've done is. They've whited out the title and then taken the panels and spread them out to fit the full page.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna send you a picture of this right now. Hang on, because this is weirding me out. You are blowing my mind with this at the moment. Okay, so this is what it looks like for me. I just sent a picture of that to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and quickly send you It's not the best picture because it's Omni, but. Yeah, no,
this is great for podcast listeners.
Yes, I you know what? No, what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to edit this in so we can.
Jacob, no, I'm not. No.
Yeah, so here's how it's supposed to look.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's spaced so weirdly.
See, that would also be interesting because I could also see the title being in between, the title and credits being between each of those panels in my version of it. But that's clearly not how it happened.
Anyway, Batgirl number 0 is
Batgirl number 0. Yeah, let's talk about this issue.
Yeah, so I should say I've actually read Detective Comics 368, the $1 million debut of Batgirl, which is a very fun, campy 60s story. Like, actually really solid. I really like what Simone does with number 0 and how Barbara becomes inspired to be Batgirl. That, like, it isn't entirely Bruce. Like, so much of it is her dad.
Yeah, I do. Well, that's what I also like about the BTAS origin they do in Shadow of the Bat, which it's about saving her dad. It's not about Batman, really. It's great. I love that. But yeah, so we have who's on art here? Ed Benes, who's great. I really love the art.
Yeah, Ed Benes doing both the pencils and the inks.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, we have a very young Barbara Gordon. We sort of like lay out her life before.
This is 4 years. 4 years ago. Okay, hang on. The time. Every time it breaks me even more.
This is also important to keep in mind. 0 year wasn't a thing yet, so this doesn't quite work out with 0 year either. So even the New 52's own continuity doesn't work. It's
You know what? I'm going to have the hot take that if they wanted to do a reboot, they should have committed to a full reboot and wipe every slate clean. Like,
I agree, because I'm never completely against the idea of a full reboot. Hell, I think Marvel should do a full reboot. I know that's a weird take on mine, but I just think that should happen. This is, according to Gail Simone herself, who did a wonderful Twitter Q&A about the New 52 a long time ago. I didn't actually know, it's not that long. I think she did it for the 20th anniversary, or for the 10th anniversary of the New 52. She did one where, like, one of the things she said was, like, there were so many weird, vague notes from DC editorial that just told them that even the writers of these comics and the editorial team did not know what was canon and what wasn't.
Oh yeah, no, and that's been something that I've noticed completely, like, throughout it all and everything that I've heard, because. And it's not so much like the writers aren't talking to each other, because, you know, comics as an industry is kind of insular in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, but a lot of these writers are friends; they know each other. Like,
yeah, and there's regular communication, but nobody ever made like any sort of like Bible for the New 52 to like say like this is what is established, this is what definitely happened in this universe, because nobody ever really thought about that. They just wanted to reboot things and keep random ass stories that they liked.
I know.
And the entire Jeff Johns Green Lantern run, which canonizes Death and Return of Superman, and pretty much everything leading that Johns references throughout that Green Lantern run, and it makes no fucking sense.
Well, also, just to add on to that, like, I know there was a big discrepancy between early Action Comics by Morrison and Superman by George Perez, who left the book after 6 issues because of the mess. Like,
yeah, and you can't blame the guy. And like, I don't even think it's Perez's fault. Early George Perez Superman just isn't good. I'm not a fan of it. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Anyway, Batgirl
hot take. The New 52 messy. But anyway, getting into this. After we sort of lay out Barbara's life, the bulk of this issue is about a visit to the GCPD that Barbara makes alongside her brother James Jr.
Yeah, Barbara is
This is also interesting because you had to read this after the spoilers, the James Jr. stuff throughout the rest of the volume.
Which okay, in publication order, this was published in between 12 and 13.
Yeah. Like the Omni, you said they included after 13, right?
Yeah, I think that's mainly for flow. Which I get. I understand placing it where the trades place it and where the Omni places it, because
this is another thing. But this is another thing also that like the New 52 trades couldn't get on the same page on. Is like, as far as the trades go that included the 0 issues, some of them would include them at the beginning like this, and others would include them at the end of their second volume, or sometimes at the start of their third volume. It was always very random.
I mean, at least Batman including it
in Graveyard Shift
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
because Graveyard Shift is a collection of standalone stories. Yeah.
It's I mean, same thing happens with the annuals in the first annual in Snyder's Batman. It's
Yeah.
stuck at the end of City of Owls, even though I think it was even though it was published in between 9 and 10 or somewhere around there, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah,
somewhere in the middle where it also actively takes place. It's a whole thing. But yeah, Barbara is trying to interview the police for her criminology work as in college, and we get some great stuff about how Batman currently no one's quite sure exactly who Batman is, what his tech is.
2 years after 0 year.
I'm not going to be. I can't be mad at Simone because 0 year hasn't been
nobody
written
knew.
yet.
Literally nobody knew. Not even Scott Snyder knew.
So Snyder had not written it yet. Oh
god, what a time. So yeah, Barbara is it gets sort of like paired up with this cop that shows her around. We meet these criminals here.
This criminal who gets brought in. This is Harry X, who is Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
He is from Canada. Get some really interesting, creepy dialogue with Barbara.
The GCP then is then attacked by these other like gangsters that free Harry and give him a gun. And Barbara and James Jr. hide. Barbara attacking Harry at one point with a chair, smashing it into his face. I mean, look at her go.
Once again, it's clearly Barbara became Batgirl to save people, mainly her little brother, and because of her dad. Now, it's very much she goes to try to save James Jr., hides, puts on the prototype bat suit that the GCPD have, try to understand Batman, and
there are also little hints through before this point up in the issue of just James Jr. being a little fucking freak, which I mean he is. It's a thing. But yeah, she finds the prototype bat suit, she puts it on, attacks Harry, and eventually comes face to face with Batman himself, who helps to who sees Harry having been down by Barbara.
Batman just says nice work. Like
James Jr. is still a little fucking freak. We then get a speed run of at least what people understood as the vague continuity of what Barbara's life was like between this event and current New 52 things.
We get New 52 Dick Grayson Robin, who
has that costume.
Yeah, that's a.
Gotta say though, I do love the old Batgirl suit. I really actually love that one.
It's a nice suit for Barbara, but like the Robin suit that's on this one panel, it's a very it feels very it feels very we'd like to just do a classic Dick Grayson Robin, but the deal wants uniformity.
That, and also we want Dick Grayson to be a teenager, and so he looks like that.
Dick needs to be a teenager, so we're giving him
2 years after 0 year.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Oh my god!
No. We're giving him it's basically Tim's Robin outfit, but worse. Like
it's got just random little. It's got that over-designed MCU look, doesn't it? Like it's
kind of
just random lines on it.
Are those
every now and then.
Pouches coming down? Like, is that? What
I don't know. You're talking about by his shoulder there, right? Whatever the fuck that is.
By the shoulder, underneath the yellow lines underneath the shoulder that look like the belt pouches further down, but they're up on like
Jacob. Right, I have no clue. Nobody knows. It doesn't look good. It's fine. Just move on. In the words of Frank Reynolds, why does anything happen? Just move past it, will you? So All right. We get a little hint at Barbara's life pre-killing joke, and then we end the issue on the killing joke, essentially. I do love the way that we sort of redraw these.
Simone is still very much doing it to tie things together.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that she's essentially already written 12 issues at this point, and that's when this is being published.
Yeah. So which is also great because reading it with like you did with the context of certain other smaller story arcs we're about to get into right now. There's a focus on a certain character in that last panel that really, really works. And I love that. Anyway, back row number 7. Here we go. Actually getting back into the main run though.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. So like, it's so weird because Knightfall Descends is essentially the entire volume of an arc, but it also like it's really 2 arcs. Like,
yeah. Well, two arcs and a tie-in.
Oh yeah, the tie.
Did you forget the Night of the Owls tie-in happened? We were just talking about Night of the Owls.
No, but because I think the tie-in actually kind of works well with what the arc is doing. Like, it thematically links. Simone does a really good tie-in. I actually have that in my notes that Simone really does a solid tie-in. So. Batgirl number 7.
We have a little bit before that, though. This is number 7, though. This is another just great little 2-issue arc that I think is probably my favorite single arc of the whole thing. The whole coverage we're doing today. I just, God, let's talk about it.
I believe, didn't I message you when I finished it? I'm like, oh, so Batgirl 7 and 8 was perfect. Like,
yeah, it just is. It's so good. Man. So we're hunting down a new villain here that Barbara is after. This is Grotesque.
Who is very Phantom of the Opera coded.
Also, I'm only just now noticing this. I love this graffiti on the sewer walls down here that says "Catwoman loves me." It's just very funny. I love that. We have Batgirl facing this guy called Grotesque. He wears this. Yeah, you're right. It is this very opera mask with these devil horns on it.
He also doesn't seem to have an actual face. He
gets the mask ripped off like early on, and he just
and this is basically our cold open, so we can go 2 hours ago.
Yeah, when Barbara is going to visit good friend Black Canary.
Once again, nobody quite knows what's canon. But Gail Simone is, of course, going to at least try to do some Birds of Prey stuff.
Yeah, of course. Because crazy idea. Gail Simone knows how to write these characters. We have Batgirl and Barbara Batgirl and Black Canary sparring here, doing some training. I love this interaction between them.
They're both fighting.
I'm not thinking
working through her issues.
I'm not thinking you haven't read much Black Canary, have you?
I really haven't.
Thoughts?
Definitely a more interesting character than the versions that were done on the CW show Arrow.
Hey, you're right, but hey. Yeah. I know you're gonna hate me for bringing this up, but I think if you would just watch Justice League Unlimited, like I keep telling you to.
I know there's a Gail Simone episode.
About Black Canary and Green Arrow, and it's so good. It's so good. You need to watch it. Anyway, thoughts on the character as presented here, at least.
Gail Simone sells me on her. Like, it's like, no, you know who this character is. You know that her relationship with Barbara. You know how things are going to work. It is masterful work in 2 issues. Because, let's be honest, Barbara's trying to work through the fact that her mother's back and still the whole, being disabled. And we're doing it through fighting, and it's great. And then they eventually have coffee.
They have tea.
They have tea, right? They have tea.
Also, just this isn't really the place to bring it up, but I just want to bring it up because she's here. I small New 52 thing I hate. It's not a small thing. It's a really big thing. Her and Green Arrow just aren't a thing, and it blows my fucking
they aren't
mind.
a thing.
They don't if I remember correctly, I don't think they even know each other.
But
it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It's just.
Dan
Really
DiDio, what were you on? What were you on? What?
Yeah, it's a problem. But they have tea. Barbara sort of just talks about her mom, how it's really like getting.
Well, it's great. So what's so bad it makes you want to get pummeled? Well, for starters, the mother who abandoned me wants back in my life from out of nowhere. Whoa. Does your dad know?
Well, he's about to, because we're going to cut over to Jim Gordon here, who is visited by Barbara. Not the Barbara we've been following. This is Barbara, his ex-wife Barbara. Ex-wife Barbara. This is confusing. She's kind of much of the way that she did for her daughter. Just kind of drops it on Jim's life.
And she's like, it's like, well, why did you leave? Well, I had to, because of James Jr., because of our son.
Oh, dun, dun, dun. More on that later, because we're going to go back to Barbara and Dinah here. And Black Canary rightfully gives Barbara the literal and metaphorical slap in the face she needs. And says, like, your mother's back. I can't tell you what to do, but at least she's alive, Barbara. Mine's gone. You have a chance at something lots of people don't. Are you seriously going to complain that you can walk again? You think you're the only person who ever regained mobility. My friend Barbara Gordon, who was in a wheelchair, and never once heard her talk like that. Never once heard her lapse into maudlin self-hatred. Don't you dare do it now that you're out.
It's great.
Amazing. Just great scene. I really don't have anything more to add than just great scene. Meanwhile, Grotesque is attacking
mainly Barbara is given the mission to go find Grotesque.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's attacking basically a gala to do some it was here, it's like,
these guys eventually escape down into a sewer.
Yeah. You know what he wants? He wants a bottle of wine. Like, he's robbing a bottle of wine. He's that petty.
The simple wants of a man called Grotesque. They escape down into a sewer. Barbara eventually finds one of the henchmen working for Grotesque and rips off his mask.
And we get this big twist.
We get our great end-of-page cliffhanger where she recognizes him as one of the henchmen that was there with the Joker the night that she was shot. Which really sets the tone, I think, for Batgirl number 8 then, as we get into that.
It is a fascinating twist in the story, like, that this is where we're going. This is the idea we're playing with. And also, a lesser writer could have made it awful, but it works so well.
Also, small note, on the last page of issue 7, Batgirl's cape just disappears. It's just not there.
Yeah, that's so we could have... That's to make the artwork of
but look at the art. Like, you can see on her shoulders, the cape is supposed to be there, and then it's just not. Like,
once again, that is to make... That is to make the artistic integrity.
Sure, it looks dramatic. Sure, it looks dramatic, but Jacob, it just disappears. It's just
Joey, you are nitpicking perfection.
Okay, but Jacob, it's really weird looking because part of the cape is there on her shoulders, and then it just disappears. I think, like, again, it looks dramatic, but I think that's also just legitimately a mistake made in the art of this issue. Like, it's
possible.
Anyway, Batgirl number 8, where the cape has returned, and yeah, let's. Okay, so henchman, Night of the
Cage. Danny the Weasel Weaver.
Yes. Once again, Simone is clarifying things about this universe's version of the Killing Joke, mainly that the most horrible and objectionable things about that event they still happened. Barbara was still addressed, pictures were still taken. This guy stood there and watched the whole time.
And laughed.
Yeah. So, Barbara, interestingly, does not quite know what to do with this information yet.
I mean, she reacts like anyone would in this situation and starts beating this guy the fuck up. He deserves it.
But then she tells him to run. And so he does. And she gives him this chance to leave. Barbara does not know why she did that. Obviously, it is Simone writing this naturally sympathetic side in Barbara, but for a guy that is so clearly causing her a great deal of internal struggle and pain, it's an interesting moment that is going to feed into the rest of this issue that I love so very much. But Barbara goes home, tries to find Alicia. Alicia is out at the moment, so what are you gonna do?
And there's like, well, the only person I really could talk to is her mother.
Mm-hmm. So we go back to Grotesque then, who talks to our henchman that let him get away.
Yeah, Danny the Weasel.
And so Grotesque puts together that she let him go out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there's clearly a reason for that. We can exploit that. But meanwhile, Barbara goes and meets with Barbara, and it's time to talk about a little problem child named James Gordon Jr. So I need to know, Jacob, what did you know about this kid before reading this?
I knew he existed.
Oh, you know actually nothing. Okay.
I knew he existed.
Cool. Okay. So I know for a fact that there's a story we need to read then before we get back to this run at some point. Okay. Now that I know that, I can adjust schedules accordingly. All right.
God,
If it helps, it's a story written by Scott Snyder. So, we'll get to it.
Story written.
Yeah.
Is this the Black Mirror? Is this where Black Mirror fits in?
It is. It is indeed where Black Mirror fits in. Yeah. We'll talk about it. We'll totally cover it on the podcast before.
Yeah. So I didn't know James Jr. was
insane.
I was going to say just a sociopath because I never had cats growing up. I only got a cat recently, but she is adorable. I've had her for a little over a year.
Cats are great. Cats are great. I speak as a lifelong cat owner. I love cats.
And this little fucker killed the family cat.
It's like his first proper scene in the run, and it's
proper scene. It is his first scene. It is his first scene. He has been like, because remember, issue 0 hasn't been written yet.
Yeah. So James Jr. shows his mom what he's done. Tells her that it is because she is a bad mommy. Tells her to leave, or it could happen to her as well.
And so she does. And Simone very much treats Barbara Sr. as a broken woman. Visibly, we see it shatter her. Like, the panel visibly shatters.
Now, there's interesting. Now, because of this, there's also interesting legwork that Simone doesn't have to do as a writer, because Black Mirror is another one of those stories that is being considered as canon to the New 52, even though it was Dick Grayson Batman, and Dick Grayson Batman still happened in the New 52, but again, still within that 6-year period that apparently all DC Universe history happened. It just
that in year 2 of that 6-year history, Dick was still Robin and Barbara was Batgirl. Like,
I love it so much.
Was Jason Todd Robin for like a week?
Probably.
Was Jason Todd's first outing Death in the Family? Which now that on my own time I've read more of Jason's time as Robin, I'm like, why? There's actually good Jason Robin stuff.
I'll say, despite its faults, Red Hood and the Outlaws does take its time to actually expand on some time of Jason as Robin that I really enjoy. So Jason as Robin within the New 52 still, and it actually works, I'll say.
Jason as Robin within the week where he was Robin.
Yeah, but the point I was making though was that Black Mirror still being considered canon it makes it so that everyone is kind of already aware of James Jr. being James Jr. and the horrible things that he's done. So there's no convincing that needs to be done here. Like Barbara is aware that what her mother is saying is the truth.
And it's very explicit that like, James is just evil. Like that is something I need to take as read, especially for jumping ahead to the end of the issue when he shows up again. He's drawn as, I am the villain. Look at me being the villain.
He is the bad guy. But first, our current bad guy is Grotesque, who is still going after Barbara, and we have our
again. I don't think we entirely mentioned because it's kind of a B plot that it's also he's going after Barbara because she's a pretty thing. Like it's that very creepy like the sexualization of women that Simone is deconstructing a little bit here because
totally.
Simone is doing so much that like this is already a long episode.
We just hit the 2-hour mark.
we still won't cover probably everything. I have very pointed notes on a lot of things.
So in defeating Grotesque here, one of the last things Grotesque did was shoot Danny. So after our sort of confrontation between Batgirl and Grotesque, Danny is left here sort of bleeding out, and he has definitely put together that Batgirl is Barbara. And so we get this fantastic scene that, although my favorite issue of the whole run, this is my favorite issue of the whole run. What am I saying? Of these 2 volumes, I should say. This scene in particular. So Barbara wants to ask him questions, just wants to know who he is, why he did what he did. And Barbara has put something together herself. And that is that on that night, because in this version of the Killing Joke, she was alone in her apartment. Reasonably, she should have bled out and died. And because nobody knew that she was there. Someone had to find out. Someone had to tell the cop exactly where to go to call an ambulance for her. We posit that Danny is the guy that did that. That he is the one that helped Barbara in those moments.
And his reasoning is, I don't know. You didn't cry. You didn't beg. I couldn't leave it alone. I couldn't stick to the plan.
Something went wrong, I guess. Something went wrong, and he dies in Barbara's arms. In an amazing panel that sends shivers down my spine.
Almost like it's paralleling some famous panels of the Killing Joke. Interesting use of meta text there.
God. One more scene. Alicia's out at night and meets a guy, and what do you know? It's James Jr. All right. Oh fuck.
And he is flirty and charming, and I imagine he was British for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, sure.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Anyway, that's
you know what? You know what? No, it does. Benedict Cumberbatch.
No, it doesn't.
Benedict Cumberbatch is Sherlock Holmes.
No, it doesn't make any sense. No. Anyway, Batgirl number 9, promising our Corvallis / Night of the Owls tie-in. So, let's do this. First off, expectations going into a Court of Owls tie-in. I believe, preparations, because I believe you did a little reread that you just stuck in.
I did it very quick. I was like, you know what? Snyder Batman is incredibly easy to reread. It's so also been over 3 years since I read it.
Shush, Jacob, shush. We haven't been doing the podcast for that long. You're lying.
Joey, you need to face facts that time marches ever forward.
No.
Yes. So, so what I did is reread. I reread Court and City just to remind myself. I remember. Yeah, no, still stories out there. Snyder's run is one of the best Batman runs. We have
so good. It's so good.
5 episodes on it. Covering
you
it
should
in
watch
full.
them all. They're all great. I always loved talking about Snyder Batman with you. I love those days. But now we're here, and we have a tie-in to Night of the Owls from Batgirl, opening up in Japan in 1944. Essentially doing what a fair few of these Night of the Owls tie-ins did, and giving some backstory for our Talons.
The Talons, yeah.
Yes, which is such a cool part of Night of the Owls that Scott Snyder's Batman, by just the nature of not having enough time to do all these things in your story, just didn't have time to do.
I want to say what I think is great about this issue is that it sort of expands the world building of the actual Night of the Owls. Like,
yeah,
mainly because like it doesn't it feels like it's filling in details, but it doesn't ever feel because rereading Corton City never feels like it's lacking in details because it's Snyder's very Bruce's story. And this all being for Bruce. So it's essentially up to the other writers on all the other Bat books to come together and be like, okay, how does the rest of the Bat family essentially integrate into this event?
So we get our backstory on our Talons here. We see Haley Circus as well, which is cool, and of course, obviously, has a lot to do with our Talons as well. But then we sort of jump forward in time and we see Batgirl facing off against Talon here. Love the Talon, this particular Talon design. I don't know, something about the female Talon in particular just makes the design look way cooler to me. It's great.
I mean, it's also meant to clearly parallel Barbara's like Batgirl suit.
Of course. But as all the Night of the Owls tie-ins were properly labeled with the time that they literally took place on, which is kind of cool. We have Barbara fighting this Talon, and Gordon on the ground, finding a Court of Owls coin as the sky passes him by. Some great setup here as we sort of go. Because this is flashing back then, right? Or no, it's not.
No, this is forward an hour, a little under an hour, as a mysterious man threatens Gordon with Barbara's life in the balance.
Because importantly, what we're seeing here first off is actually the moments before the proper Night of the Owls event.
It's kind of a prequel because it's
the moment where they sort of all cross over is the moment when Alfred reaches out to the Bat family.
This is all building up to for a lot of this, Bruce is like just getting out of the labyrinth, basically. And
getting back to Wayne Manor and waiting for the Talons to attack him. We
end this with the owl signal going up in the sky,
Yeah.
Whereas I think what some of the other tie-ins are much later on in the night, right?
Well, I'll say also, this is kind of this particular tie-in issue gets directly continued in the Red Hood and the Outlaws tie-in, which I did go back and look through because I was like, wait a second. I was like, there's something more specifically with Batgirl in the crossover that happens, and it's in Red Hood and the Outlaws where Batgirl crosses over with those characters, and also in that Red Hood and the Outlaws tie-in, crosses over with Mr. Freeze, which goes into the annual then as well for Batman. It's a whole thing. Here's the thing: when you read it all as like one large event, it's actually pretty cool. A lot of those work.
I was going to say because isn't there a trade that where you isn't there a Night of the Owls trade where you can
you can just read them all in order.
And it also includes at least the most of the main, not the backups, but the main stories from the main Batman issues.
Yeah. The only, as far as the overall event, the only ones that I feel like don't really work as cohesively with them all are, of course, for some reason, All-Star Western has a tie-in. It's so weird. What? All-Star Western has a tie-in with an Old West Talon, which is pretty cool. But again, it just doesn't work cohesively with the event as a whole.
Was Snyder writing All-Star Western?
No, I think that was Jimmy Palmiotti.
Why?
Yeah, it was.
Wait, because All-Star Western isn't a superhero book. It's
Jonah Hex. Yeah, it's. It's so weird. So there's that, and then there's also a Batwing tie-in that doesn't tie in as directly to the rest of the Bat family, because Batwing just isn't directly related to Gotham City. So, yeah, otherwise it works pretty cool. It's just an overall event. I like it. But this on its own is a great little slice of that larger event, because we get the GCPD being attacked, the call going out from Alfred to the rest of the Bat family, warning them of the Talons, how to take them on, how to fight them. Barbara rushing to the GCPD as it is being blown up. We have Barbara versus this Talon again. Great fight scene between the two of them. Eventually, it does get sort of caught up in the blast of these balloon bombs. And Batgirl remains...
specifically, the big twist of this Talon is being from 1944 that you can kind of see coming. She's from Nagasaki on the eve of the dropping of the bomb. So,
yeah.
Which is kind of something I wish had a little more focus, honestly. That was like one of my kind of core complaints about this.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's also just kind of a problem with a lot of these tie-ins in general. They work for the most part, but
I mean, it's also possible because I saw the cover of the annual, which, spoiler alert, has a Talon on it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe we're gonna get more of this character next time. You'll come back to this run.
You'll see. But yeah, we have the big cliffhanger of the owl signal going up in the sky and sort of closing out our issue there. There's, again, obviously more things that happen with this, but it's mostly just resigned to other Night of the Owls tie-ins. Until then, let's talk about our last arc now of the volume. This is the final 4 issues here. Speaking of the final story here, it is different. It feels very different, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just, you had a theory about this that I'm not sure is correct. You said it felt like an editorial thing.
Yeah. There is the main villain of this arc. It was mainly on her design. There's some aspects of her design that look like Stephanie Brown as Spoiler. And my curiosity was that maybe at one point there was an idea of potentially bringing back Stephanie Brown at this point.
I'm not sure if I agree with that.
I came up with this idea after reading issue 9 or issue 10. It wasn't. Yeah. So I don't think it works, but it's.
I feel like if that was an idea that Simone had, it would have been shot down before it even got to any sort of scripting or design stage. So I don't know. Who knows? I guess we'll never know, really.
Very possibly shot down. It's also
unless we get Gail Simone on the podcast and we ask her straight up, is Knightfall supposed to be Stephanie Brown? And she would probably say no.
She'd probably say no. Yes. Here's the thing. You don't want me to get into a room with Gail Simone, because I would my first question would be, okay, what does it feel like to have contributed to literary criticism? Potentially not even thinking about it. You have named
Gail, if you're listening, tell us.
Actually, I'm also sure I'm not the first person to ask that.
You're definitely not.
I cannot. I don't have original questions.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into this though. Background number 9. Opening on a sort of finishing off our grotesque stuff in. No, we're not. What am I saying?
No, this is just Barbara is going after some other thugs.
Yes.
And you know what? It's something that I don't think we've alluded to it, but we haven't explicitly said it. Something that Gail Simone does really well is humanizing the criminals. She's treating our villains as humans, which is kind of reflective of society. Just in general, people, if you're labeled a criminal in society, generally you are dehumanized. Doesn't matter what the crime is, which is a whole other conversation about justice and intersections of bigotry and a lot of other factors that we do not have the time to go into. But it's very important that Simone is treating criminals as people.
Yeah. Batgirl is fighting these guys in like a car park, and one of these thugs like runs away and eventually finds himself caught in a bear trap that is
that is just there. Like,
yeah,
Barbara is just shocked. Is like, why the fuck is there a bear trap here?
there
Because
to catch wild Gail Simones.
But this is a Gail Simone book. This isn't a Tom Taylor book.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So yes, this guy's leg gets caught in a bear trap, and like she's like trying to help him. This guy's name is Ricky. She like tries to like learn more about him, tries to help him, and
it's very much like you need to be brave. I like it's this great, very much like, if I release this trap, you will die because you will start to be bleeding completely.
Mm-hmm. And so waiting for or joining them here are these three people that are like watching over this event that the parking garage is next to, and they say, you know, we set this trap here. They tell her to leave Ricky there. They will deal with him. So Batgirl decides to leave, and meanwhile at this event here, we meet our it's not a spoiler to say this is our main villain of the arc. This is I can't think of her name now. Something Carnes.
It's
can't think of her first name now.
Charisse.
That's it. Yes, you're correct. Charisse Carnes. She is.
I wonder if our character, whose last name is Carnes, like Carne. It might be pronounced Carnes, but carne is Spanish for meat.
Huh. Did not know that.
Yeah.
Also, Lois Lane is here.
Lois Lane is here. Yeah, always down for a Lois cameo. Honestly, I just love it when we have like the press and there's just a wild Lois Lane appears.
Truly a wild Lois Lane. There's no better adjective to describe her.
But Carnes has this idea of I want to gentrify Cherry Tree Hill because my family had a vision. Very much trying to do the hey. Billionaires suck. Bruce Wayne is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. I guess almost sort of as a response almost to the end of our last volume, with
where we have Bruce's plans for Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is we find out, Lois, being Lois, is like, hey, yeah, you were accused of a crime, and the crime of murdering your own family, and you somehow escaped justice. Like, well, at my appeal, I was cleared in the eyes of the law. I would say released is a more accurate description. Yeah, we're gonna see a lot. We eventually then get an explanation that this woman watched as her entire family was flayed alive in front of her.
Yeah. But we'll get more on that later as we're sort of as we go back with our Charisse's, let's call them bodyguards here, as we get our first hint of what Charisse and her bodyguards are sort of up to, as we see a man trapped in a cage, his eyes sewn shut, begging her to kill him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Barbara has to bail Alicia Yao out of jail.
Yeah, because actually, no, you don't need a reason. You know exactly why. But Alicia is bailed out. She goes out to eat with Barbara, and Alicia begins talking about she begins talking about how much she likes Charisse.
Mainly because Charisse has gotten the community involved, very much as a smokescreen for her nefarious purposes. But obviously, Alicia wouldn't know the inner workings of Bruce Wayne's life for good reason.
She does also order a soda cola, which I always love a soda cola reference. It's great. And We go back to Batgirl then, who comes face to face for the first time with our bodyguards in full costumed regalia as they are dressed up.
Threatening Ricky.
Yeah, they're threatening Ricky, dressed up in their costumes. I mean, look, I got to real. I don't remember these characters' names. It's a bit much to take in as
it's
as
a lot. It's
all these characters get introduced.
They don't get named until the next issue. Like
that's true. Yeah.
But no. So they're here to offer Barbara a place in their organization. And the test is basically like, you just got to let this guy die, and Barbara can't do that. Like,
yeah.
So a fight breaks out. And we eventually end with then, our 3 bodyguards. They're all metahumans of some sort, and Knightfall as Knightfall descends. Bum, bum, bum.
And we go into Batgirl number 10, which is the cover of Volume 2, which is nice. It's a nice cover.
In some printings. Apparently this thing has 2 covers. Like,
oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, at least according to the DC Wiki.
I have only ever seen it with this cover.
Maybe the original hardcover had a different cover, because I know sometimes the DC will do that. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, on to Batgirl number 10. We see our character Knightfall here. Hooded, purple hooded, wearing kind of a religious symbol. Looks like an axe on her outfit here. And we get a fight that breaks out between Batgirl
and her trio of bodyguards is Catharsis with a K, because
different.
Bleak Michael, who secretes acid, and Bonebreaker. Gonna be honest, I don't care about any of these characters. I'm far more interested in the Barbara Ricky, for lack of a better term, relationship, like that whole humanity, and Charisse Carnes as Knightfall, our villain, because it's they're just there and they just don't do much.
Yeah, because our fight scene here is pretty simple. It basically just culminates in Batgirl kind of getting pummeled by the 3 of them.
Yeah, and very much the whole idea is that they want to abolish prisons and everything and tear everything down. We then get a scene with Alicia and James Gordon Jr., who has gotten Alicia a pet cat called Alaska, who we then learn a little bit later. It's also the name of Barbara Gordon's cat. Weird.
That means nothing, right? Yeah, it
means nothing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back with Batgirl and Knightfall, Detective McKenna arrives to try to arrest our bodyguards, and
it's also clear that Knightfall knows McKenna and is like on a first name basis.
Yeah,
like it's. This is I'll say another great thing about it is actually the McKenna stuff coming to a head in this arc. Like this is where we're going to get McKenna's again. This arc these last 4 issues aren't bad.
It's not bad, no, but certainly compared to the rest of the run up to this point, it's lacking somewhat.
It's got some more generic things than other things, and part of me thinks it very much could be that Simone. Now that we're getting close to a year into the run, and after Night of the Owls, knowing that Snyder is staying on Batman for a while, because let's be honest, some of the early New 52, people were jumping on and off books left and right. Like,
oh yeah, of course,
it happened. I think someone was like, right, I need to get this plot out here, and I have 4 issues because issue 13. Is where Death of the Families tie-ins are gonna.
That issue also ends on someone teasing like larger villain team up things happening later in the run.
Yeah.
And also you're right. It's leading into the Death of the Family tie-ins. For my money, it's probably it's at least top 3 arcs of the whole run. Pretty love that one.
I mean, let's be honest. There's a reason this run is lauded. Like,
yeah, of course. But yeah, McKenna trying to take on these guys. They make their escape. McKenna and Batgirl make their escape as well. McKenna begins telling Batgirl about what she knows about Karnas, and she takes her back to her house where Batgirl begins like putting things together with her. Essentially putting together, yeah, like McKenna's like definitely not leaving out details, is not telling
Batgirl. There's this idea that in prison she was left in solitary without supervision among the worst of criminals for 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then Batgirl starts to put the pieces together that, like, hey, hang on a minute, hold up. We're at your apartment. Why the fuck have you been investigating me? Like, she immediately puts together, like, you're obsessed. What the hell is this? Like, how did you find me? How did you know all this? So a fight breaks out.
McKenna then finally begins coming clean about her connections to Karnas,
as well as how she's paralleled with Barbara as a character, and why the events of the first 2 issues of the book fucked her up, because as a detective at one point, when Arkham was raided and there was a big breakout, the same breakout that Karnas was left alone in, her husband, who was a guard, was threatened by a criminal. McKenna had a gun and she froze and wasn't able to save him.
Mm-hmm. And killing her husband left McKenna alone then, and still, in a way, connected to Karnas, leading to the revelation that on McKenna's tail, and right outside of her house, is Batwoman.
Because yeah, there's this little uncertainty of what McKenna actually knows about the Bat family, like,
mm-hmm.
but she does know that there's a mole in whatever organization Batgirl's a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And surprise, the mole is Batwoman.
Yeah.
Hi, Kate. How are you doing?
Love her so much.
Another character we need to read more of. So many
things will be fixed when we just read James Tynion's Detective. It's so good.
Here's the thing. One of these days, we just need a Bat family block where we do like
Jacob. That would be the longest single block we've ever done on the podcast. Jacob, you don't realize I could do 20 episodes straight of Bat family books, and I would.
I was going to say, and you would.
I would. Anyway, bring us to Batgirl number 12. Wait, what was I saying? Oh, I was numbering these wrong, wasn't I?
This is...
Wait, it was 7, 8... Wait, no, this is... What am I doing wrong? This is 11. I was saying the last one... No, this is 12. I was saying the last one was 10, I think. Sorry.
You did 10 twice. I think you did 10 twice.
I did do 10 twice. You're absolutely correct about that. Or I might have done 9 twice. Either way, this is number 12, actually. Jesus. Also, I love this cover. This is used as the back cover of the second volume.
That's fair. That's
very fair. Good, yeah. Here we go. McKenna still revealing backstory things to Barbara as Batwoman jumps in and begins accusing people of everything. Batwoman comes on kind of strong here. I didn't know. Wait, is this your first really big Batwoman appearance in anything?
I think it might be.
I'm trying to think I think we've had small appearances.
We've had small things, and
I don't think
I have read like the little bits of in the Grant Morrison Omni. They include the 52 stories that Morrison wrote with Batman, and I think Batwoman shows up there briefly.
I believe you're correct.
But not very.
And of course, she was also Night of the Monster, and she's a pretty big part of that as well.
Yeah, she's a big part of Monster Man, and I think that's about it.
Cool. Well, here she is. We have this great fight scene then between Batwoman and Batgirl. I like this square off here. It's really nice.
Simone really, really knows how to play up the fact that like these two characters wouldn't have really met.
Exactly. So there's this kind of like natural distrust between the two of them that plays up really nicely. There's
also the question of, do they know each other's secret identities? Because obviously Bruce knows everyone's secret identity, and Barbara definitely knows Bruce, Dick, Damian, Tim, Bruce and the Robins.
Yeah. Kathy, whatever you want to call her, is definitely a bit more on the outside. She's also also one of the few Bat Family characters that I have not read the earliest New 52 stuff of, and I've heard that run is great. I really do
Is
need to
that
check it
the
out.
J.H. Williams?
I believe so. I forget exactly who was on it. The only big Bat Family ones I'm really missing are hers and Batwing. I haven't really done a full read of Batwing, so.
Of course, it would be like the two characters basically introduced with, I mean, not quite with the New 52, introduced close enough to the New 52. They were,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah,
because the original Batwoman series was originally going to be pre New 52.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, and Batwing just isn't a character I have a ton of personal interest in. I don't know. That's more of a me thing. But anyway, we have Batwoman then sort of interrogating after things are sort of cleared up between our characters here, sort of interrogating them about like what is about like why they're all here, the massive misunderstanding that has happened between these three characters. I also do love the moment where Batgirl says, "Okay, Uncle, all right," and she's like, "Uncle? Who says Uncle anymore?" Which is just funny. As we begin sort of clearing things up, or rather, in a way, making things more complicated, we find out about more of McKenna being tracked by Knightfall, and how they're after McKenna in the end,
and how Knightfall wants to kill every criminal in the city, and that basically they have Ricky, and they want Batgirl to come alone. So we're getting a trio of a team up. Like that's what we're getting, and it's very good. It's very good. It also we also get this nice thing that oh look, James Gordon Jr. is responsible for feeding in information to Knightfall. Interesting that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the rest of the issue is just action building up to finding Ricky mutilated and abused but alive, and tortured, and it's very dark, and it's
Barbara gets stabbed at the end of the issue by Knightfall, taking us into the final issue of the collection and of today's episode, at long last, Batgirl number 13. This is another big favorite cover of this collection. I really love this one. Getting into this last issue here, we have Knightfall versus Batgirl. Knightfall with an upgraded costume that, oddly enough, I think is more reminiscent of a spoiler costume than when you originally called out that it looks kind of like a spoiler costume.
I'm like, was there ever maybe an idea like?
I have no clue.
I would like to ask Gail Simone.
I would like to ask Dan DiDio.
That too.
That is a man I want to talk to for very different reasons. The reasons I want to talk to Gail Simone.
Can if you ever get the chance, could you call out his active sexism of asking fans what female writers should I hire?
I would just like to speak to the man because I think he's just a funny little man. I think he would be a funny guy to talk to. I love that picture of him wearing a little Burger King crown. I think he's hilarious. You don't understand, Jacob. I could criticize him a lot, but I fucking love Dan DiDio just as a person. He's just
God. If we ever interviewed Dan DiDio, it would be a good cop, bad cop routine where you would be the good cop.
I'd be so nice to him. I just want to talk to him, man. I think he's just chill. I don't know, man. He's great. I always love I wish I could remember what it was in, but there's like some press event for Rebirth when they unveiled Nightwing's title for Rebirth, and he was back in blue, and everyone just like taking the piss out of Dan DiDio the whole time while he's up on stage for the event. It's the funniest shit. I love it. Anyway, back to this though. A great fight scene between
Carnes is going to gives Barbara the option of like, is there anyone you'd want us to notify of your death?
Interesting moment. I like that a lot. We see
and Barbara eventually flips it over to him, and that's That's great.
We see James Jr. sort of monitoring the whole fight, and
then we get Carnes' actual backstory that, someone was there and someone made her watch her family get alive, and it's the guy in the cage. Like,
yeah. In a way, there is this idea of Carnes being justified in her initial quest for revenge, but the idea that she has taken it too far.
And it's just turned into torture and not acknowledging the humanity of criminals.
In many ways, if we're going on the whole, like, each villain that Simone has done so far being a sort of reflection of Batgirl, then this is the sort of dark mirror of.
I was gonna say this is the
what Barbara could have been.
What Barbara could have been post killing joke.
Yeah. And it's great. It's a great idea. It's not something that I feel personally attached to. It
doesn't quite work as well in the execution because I almost
feel like if Knightfall was an individual villain rather than having this larger group of villains alongside her, I feel like I could have been a bit more invested. I feel like it is the sheer mass of characters being thrown at me that kind of takes me out of it. And I've struggled with this before reading this arc, and it's not bad. Again, it's not bad by any means. It's just it is certainly lacking where previous arcs have very much succeeded.
Yeah. Also, Charisse kind of goes down pretty quickly. Like,
yeah.
Like, and we don't see much of the fight with McKenna and Batwoman. Like,
which that's very much kept off the page. And we see Ricky having a hand here then in helping to take Knightfall down, like holding her against these cells, and eventually like knocking her out, freeing Ricky, and getting Batwoman and McKenna out of here. And then getting what is probably the best scene of the issue. I love this epilogue here, with Barbara sort of healing after the fight, seeing Alicia and the cat Alaska, which she does call out that or she calls it in narration that it's like, hey, that was the name of my cat as a kid. That's fucking weird. And then she gets a call from her mom, who is being attacked at her home by 3 men wearing clown masks, one of which is in a Hawaiian shirt
with a camera.
Jacob, part of me is so mad we're not doing another Batgirl episode after this, because I fucking love this arc that this goes into so fucking much. Alas, we have another epilogue here then of our past, of literally all of our past villains in this run so far being recruited to kill Batgirl. But other than that, I believe that finishes off Knightfall Descends, and thus our first 2 volumes of Gail Simone Batgirl.
Yeah. Oh,
Jacob, thoughts in general? What do you think? Did you like this at all? I get the feeling you didn't.
Yeah. No. Oh, I mean, it's Gail. Look, there's a reason this has been on my to want to read list since the beginning of the podcast. Gail Simone is a writer. She just gets it. She gets it. She knows what she's doing. She needs to be held up. I'm just in the annals of comic history and probably literary history eventually. As well as that she's also making the move to writing her own writing novels, which is great as well. Like Gail Simone. Oddly enough, a lesser writer would have folded under the pressure of trying to basically meet all the editorial demands of this book, but Simone actually meets them, makes them work.
Yeah. Makes a story out of those editorial demands.
Takes the, let's be honest, the problematic premise of fixing a disability and very much wanting to explore, no, a disability isn't a thing to be fixed.
Yeah.
Like, that is part of someone's identity. So much so that I have a feeling that this is where Barbara Gordon as a character might peak. And
I unfortunately strongly agree.
I was going to say, like, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if other writers will focus on that. And I think there's a reason, even though I know you say modern DC has the problem, I think having all 3 Batgirls working together in modern DC might help that might help the problem, because it helps get Barbara back to a place development-wise where she was pre-New 52. Because, let's be honest, there is clearly some character development that's been undone here. Just because...
definitely.
And I don't blame Simone. That is someone has to try to tell a story with the New 52 in mind. And let's be honest, as a reboot, the New 52 was incredibly hasty. Like, it happened, like, Flashpoint was supposed to just be a normal Flash event. Like,
yeah.
Like, it wasn't meant to be a crisis, and then it became a crisis, and then we rebooted everything, and a mess followed. But
what's that Jimmy Neutron meme of Carl bringing in the or Sheen bringing in the thing for like show and tell for like the 7th time this week? It's like Dan DiDio brings in Jeff Johns for the 7th time this week, and everyone's like, just, you put them on every fucking book, and they're like, what if we just did that for the entire universe? What if Jeff Johns wrote everything? And it's. That's the New 52.
That's the New 52.
I feel like honestly we could make an entire podcast episode after reading a certain amount of New 52 of just like talking about the existence of the New 52 as a whole, which I think would be really fascinating. Or I could just make it a clip show of all the random New 52 rants we've had over the years on this podcast.
Well, you probably could. So. And here's the thing: you could actually maybe even then make it a coherent video essay.
Totally. I think so. Yeah. But anyway, that was Batgirl by Gail Simone. Obviously, faithful listeners know what we're covering next time on the podcast. Batman R.I.P. by Grant Morrison. We are continuing our Grant Morrison coverage.
Grant Morrison and drawn by Tony S. Daniel, mostly.
With covers by Alex Ross as well. So
that I haven't realized yet.
He does every cover for the collection. So it's great. It's really, really great. But yeah, that'll be next time. That'll be episode 90, which is also, I should say, technically our 100th episode, because if we count bonus episodes, we did 10 of those. So 90 is technically our 100th episode.
No.
It's not. We only do numbered episodes around here. I have special plans for our 100th episode that I'm so excited about. So be on the lookout for all that. But yeah, I think that about does it. Let's do some promotions. Jacob, what do you have going on in your life?
Yeah, mostly have my blog. I've actually been doing multiple reviews on my blog. I'm back to reviewing some books, mainly Doctor Who books, but I'm going to be doing some fantasy stuff and probably some sci-fi soonish. I'm just not going to be taking nearly as much as I was because I got burnt out over the last year on writing those things, and so I slowed down a little bit. I've also been reviewing Star Trek: The Next Generation, and at the time of this episode coming out, I will have just done.
Is it
When the Bow Breaks?
When the Bow Breaks.
Yeah, we're recording this early. We're recording this a little early. Yeah.
When the Bow Breaks. Yeah.
I should have just done that because when this is coming out, I will already be on vacation. This is why if you
wait, that's not true.
Yeah, this comes out on the next one.
I was gonna say this comes out on the 10th, Jacob. What are you talking about?
Well, I still have another.
You're talking about the following episode. We still have another episode to pre-record, Jacob.
Yes,
before that.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
That is that. Sorry.
Time is a weird soup. I am also covering Star Trek: The Next Generation on the channel with my brother. We're doing video reviews of all of our episodes. We just did When the Bow Breaks, and what is the episode? Is it Home Soil after that? I feel like it's Home Soil after that.
Yeah, Home Soil is after
Home Soil. You can get early access to that if you join our Patreon for $2 a month. You can get 1 week early access to our Star Trek videos, so you can get Home Soil early if you're really passionate about Home Soil. It's not a bad episode. It's another one that's just kind of there.
That seems also like a lot of Star Trek TNG season.
A lot of early TNG. Yeah. So check all that out. What else? R2BD is another show I do with my brother. We do Star Wars things. At the time of releasing this, I think we recently put out our video on what's it called? There Is No Fear, the first volume of High Republic comics, which should be very fun to talk about. And our next episode should be our coverage of The Living Force by John Jackson Miller, which at the time of recording I'm currently reading, and it's actually really, really good. So I'm very much enjoying that. So check all that out. We're also doing Andor reviews coming up for seasons 1 and 2, so check all that out when that is out. Otherwise, there are Fresh Face One-Shots, the spinoff of this podcast where we cover current comics coming out. We cover Superman by Joshua Williamson, Wonder Woman by Tom King, Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, the end of the Long Halloween saga, supposedly. We also cover The Uncanny X-Men by Fresh Face Comics fan Gail Simone.
And currently this month we are doing the X-Man Hunt event.
We're recording this in advance, so I'm thankfully living in the bliss of not having to talk about that currently.
Here's the thing: when this is out, we will at least have covered 2 issues and be prepping to cover the next.
No. Three are the first week, Jacob.
3 are the first week.
3 issues, Jacob. We are 3 issues deep into X-Men Hunt at the time.
Wait, hang on. We don't have any other one-shots that week, though, do we?
Good.
I don't.
Hopefully
no,
hopefully
we don't
not.
because.
Within
Yeah.
Whatever.
Because Long Halloween just released the week we're recording this.
I love whenever we record these things in advance and we just totally break continuity because we have no clue what's happening in the world. It's really great. But yeah, check all that out. I'm sure we're doing great things. I
am hopeful that our X-Man Hunt discussions are more than just we don't know these characters. Next,
they might be. I have no clue. But yeah. Also, our link trees will be in the description below. You can follow us wherever you want to follow us. I will also have Amazon links in the description to the books that we cover today and the books we're covering next time on the podcast. So Batgirl and Batman R.I.P. A lot of fun things coming up. And also after Batman R.I.P., we have a Marvel block coming up that I'm also very excited about. Wherever you're listening to us, be sure to leave a rating and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to us. Any and all support is greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel, Blood Unit Studios. Any and all support. Once again, we love you. Thank you all so much for listening. I guess until next time, this has been Joey Morgan
and Jacob Licklider.
Bye.